Hey you, it's true, and I think we are live now for the first ever live tier list in Evertale's history, on YouTube at least that is, and we are going to tier all the 200 plus SSR characters in Evertale right now, except for one, because for one I'm missing the data. Of course we are still going to make it data-based. Welcome Ming in the chat as well. We have the chat on the screen as well, so we have potentially some other veterans and players sharing their opinions as we go along with all these characters. Welcome Drubo as well. And yeah, so I think we will just go through every single character that is here on the list. And yeah, go from A to C. So the very first one will be Akatsuki, all the way down to the characters with the set. So yeah, we will have a lot of characters to cover today, so I'm actually curious how long this is going to take. But glad we already have some people along for the ride. Welcome Tian as well, Tian666, and Ming saying already my GOAT viewers is gonna go to the top. Let's see, for Reset we still need a little more time, given that she will only come when we hit the letter R. And so we will first start off with the characters starting with A, which is actually a surprising amount, as you can see here. We have like, how many is it? We have, the first row is A, and you know, it's going all the way there to Astrid until Bahamut, so basically 1.5 rows here, which is like, wait, how many characters do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So it's like, what, 24 or something, 24 characters starting with an A in Evertale. That is over 10% of all the characters in Evertale, at least all the SSR characters in Evertale. So yeah, we will take a while to just go through the A before we get to the B, and you know, then all the way down to the R for the Valkyrie Reset, for example. Jared already saying trust in Dark Musa. Well, that's the one unit that is not gonna be tiered today, because there's no data on her yet. But yeah, when we hit Musashi, I'm gonna share my my thoughts on which tier I think she will go to as well. And unfortunately, tier 19 Love, I can't read that, but if anybody can translate that, I'm glad to respond to that. It's gonna take like 4 to 5 hours, let's see. Yeah, I mean, the one I did with the 150 charts took 2 hours, but that was scripted and was rather fast. But then again, I think I'm not gonna spend too much time on the cheat here, on the graveyard tier characters, which will be a lot of characters. So hopefully we're gonna save some time there. Oh, hey, Edsonex is there as well. Very welcome. And No Comment 1, hello, new subscriber. Great to have you as well. Great sign as well that I'm already swallowing my tongue before we even have tiered the very first character. But yeah, the way it's gonna work is we are gonna go through all the characters, the 200 SSRs, and tier them all. And later on I will add the timestamps after the live stream. So if you're watching this on demand, basically after the live stream has already ended, you can just jump to the characters that you are interested in with the timestamps in the video description. Oh, welcome, Rositiara is there as well. Glad to have you on board, a true supporter. And yeah, I think we can kick it off already. We have 18 people, and yeah, we're gonna go through the first characters. And at any point, feel free to let me know what your thoughts are on each of them, in terms of what do you think, do you have some experiences with that character or not? You know, a lot of these characters, maybe some of you haven't even heard of, so let's see how that goes. The first one is actually, oh, Tian, I just realized that my 4 characters are just ordinary. Well, let's see how it's gonna go. And Akatsuki first, SSSS. Let's see about that. I'm support always also joining the chat, which is great. Hopefully we won't keep him up so long this time. And Akatsuki obviously in G, Jared already says. And yes, that is correct. We're gonna start with none other than Akatsuki, and this burn unit has actually a pretty high speed, but other than that, there's nothing much that helps him at this point. He's going straight to the graveyard tier as our very first to go there, but he will be joined by many more. But yeah, actually, I mean, in the historic PvP, he's one of the very first characters in Evertale. In historic PvP, he's still decent, but even there, you know, somebody like Fire Astrid, the original one, is basically completely putting him into the shadow. And yeah, so we're gonna move on already from that one. Let me see what the chat is saying. Obviously in G, Party Pooper, Akatsuki in Gerd. What is Gerd? that's a German name. The tier list is going to be gigantic. There's so much to choose from. Yes. Light Alice as well. Exactly. Akatsuki was my favorite on draft PvP back then. Oh my goodness. Okay, that's a long time ago. But then again, draft PvP, I feel like, you know, you had better choices, right? You could only choose like 2 or was it 3 SSRs. So going for Akatsuki there is a bit of a strong choice. Tierlist will be German. Natürlich, ich kann doch einfach jetzt hier auf Deutsch weiterreden, aber dann sind alle außer Jared wahrscheinlich raus. So everybody except Jared will not understand me if I continue like that. And I might lose some viewers. So much characters I don't know even exist. Yes, exactly. We will go through all of them, so it will be basically an encyclopedia. The next one is Alice, the original version, the light version. And Jared already mentioned it. Unfortunately, she goes to the G tier. Still nice to have the Tavoon Rabbit that is doing some interesting stuff. I think for some constellations, it's still nice because the Tavoon Rabbit has some very high, very high hate, and so you can get some TU reduction on some of your units. And yeah, at the beginning of Evertale 2.0, I was using her, but not limit broken, so she cannot use the Dream Hunter, because then I would have to have more power on her, but just for her to use, you know, the Tavoon Rabbit all the time and help support your team in that way. Then we have Dark Alice coming up next, and she is much younger, actually. She's from 2022, I think. Yeah, I think so. So many years to cover. But she was the very first unit with an instant skill. That was the Instant Devour, but if you can believe it, that Instant Devour was locked for 100 time units after she used it, and that basically destroyed her whole skill set in a way, or was it 50 time units? But either way, it was terrible because she had the poison and counter attack, and so if she got the counter triggered, she couldn't use the Instant Devour, which was terrible. But at that point in time, probably they wanted to be careful with the very first instant skill unit that has a one-time unit skill. So that is Dead Alice, also going to the G tier. And let me see if I missed something on the chat. Mir macht das nichts, Jared is saying. Oui, baguette, eat carrot and chill. I wonder how many hours this will take. Let's see. Dark Alice should still be in E or F. Yeah, I mean, there is an argument to be made, but at this point, you know, I kind of decided, okay, the G tier, the graveyard tier, will swallow everybody who isn't remotely being used in the meta. So if you just have a few teams using it from 2000, then it doesn't really matter all that much anymore if she's better than the other Alice and the Akatsuki, you know. That's my reasoning there. Alice got redesigned on main story, yeah, exactly. That's a bit sad, actually. I prefer her original variant, looks much more nice and fairy tale-like. And Water Alice, Jared already saying she might be in G, and welcome Callen to the stream as well. We have none other than Water Alice as the very first F tier unit. Congratulations. She's the youngest of the Alices, obviously. Even though she is a sleep unit, a regular sleep unit that is struggling, she is still worthy of the F tier based on the data that is. So yeah, congratulations to Water Alice. Slowly we are filling up this tier list, I guess, going from the bottom, but it is A to C, so let's see once we break open the new tiers. First though, we will have Water Alira. She is basically a sleep survivor unit, a kind of assassin, and she was one of the first units with a very strong skill that actually ignores armor, but nevertheless, unfortunately, she goes to the graveyard tier. She's no longer really a usable unit except for, you know, beating the online story or something like that. So that is unfortunate, but she has to go to the graveyard tier. Jared in chat saying, God, I hate Water Alice. This 10% sleep per hit was insane. Yeah, exactly. That was back then. It was kind of revolutionary. Immediately took out the wind from the sails of the previously released fire units, Nobunaga and that other streamer girl. And G stands for Gobsolete. Nice. Not including the SR and below. No, man. Then we would be here all night. I mean, actually, I mean, it's like, what, 100 characters probably SR or below, so we would have like 300 characters? No, but yeah, let's go ahead and rank none other than Earth Alira, the only ever Autoguard, the only ever SSR Autoguard that doesn't have a 100% redirect chance. So basically she only has 60%, but even still, and as one of the very oldest characters, she still makes it to the F tier because, yeah, she still has some guarding power. I mean, you know, obviously at this point, it's a very weak guarding power, but F tier is F tier, and congratulations for that tiering. And moving on to the next one, that is the dragon. I mean, in this one, it's his first form, so it's a very cute little dragon, but the other versions are pretty big. It's Altaireon with the first, no, actually it was the second ever character that has a stun skin. And, but yeah, he had that kind of pain stun random, very useful in stun teams. I'm definitely already curious how he's gonna do in my historic PvP and Shadow League tournaments once he is released. I think in October or November, probably November 2019 when he was released. And so yeah. But all that being said, he is still going to the G tier. But yeah, he has some time draining as well, so that he was really a good character back in the days. Highly recommended for stun teams back then, but don't cut that out of context. Linux, welcome to the chat as well. Great to have you. Earth Alira, my beloved. Jared is saying, please be E. Well, close enough, close enough. She is F tier right now, according to my data. I just hope that my beloved Chimori and Kibble mentioned what. I'm not sure about that, but now they are mentioned, I guess. I just mentioned them. Alright, and then, guys, look who's next. It's Anastasia. Definitely by far the newest unit we have covered so far. So the very first in the alphabet that gets an early mention. It's Anastasia, the very first Frostburn unit in the game. Very good for sure. For that purpose, and right now possibly getting even more interesting. I mean, yes, she is the fountain unit that is out right now, plus she is also one of the few counters to the new Dark Musashi that can be concocted, I guess, because there is a chance that she gets the turn after Dark Heaven stands from Dark Musashi, and then she has a chance to Frostburn Dark Musashi and basically make her lose that turn to get herself started. So yeah, that is why Anastasia might even become even stronger in the future. But yeah, let's see which tier she's actually gonna go. Dubro is saying absolutely SS, please. I'm support always is saying G tier. 57 damage more is enough. Anna should be SS higher. Oh, and Rositara is also saying SS tier. And you are all correct, even though Edsonix is saying now SSS tier in my tier list. SSS tier, very, very exclusive. Of course, there can be an argument that can be made for SSS tier as well. But she is still not, you know, she still doesn't have the best synergy with all kinds of stuff, and she kind of needs an enabler to really shine, to do the Blizzard Slash straight away. Ignoring guards, I mean, yeah, really, really a very, very strong skill set. And ultimately, I mean, depending on how the meta evolves, I could still see her break into the SSS tier. I mean, now is the chance, if ever, because in the next few weeks, because now she has that fountain banner and might be introduced to the meta to counter Dark Musashi. But let's see how that goes. But for now, she is very lonely here at the top, but staying at the SS tier. And then we have the next unit. And why the fuck people in my server use the Cthulhu Musa back? What? Musa back? Oh, you mean the Dark Musashi? Oh, actually Cthulhu with Dark Musashi is actually interesting, because then Cthulhu can get the turns whenever Dark Musashi kills as well. But yeah, Rosy Tiara is right. High SS tier, but not SSS for Anastasia. Anna have 2 S in her name. It was foretold. Oh, nice catch there. SSS tier when probably never. I'm just demoting units so that the SSS tier is always staying exclusive and high tier. Alright, I'm going to use Anna with poison units. Okay, that's I'm not sure about that one. Actually, right now I'm not sure about anything with poison, to be honest. Alright, then we get to Antares, and she got the first SSR version only when Evertale 2.0 was released, and back then she was insanely strong. Well, insane is maybe overhyping it a little bit, but she was a staple for a very long time because whenever she got hit, she had that stun all skin going on, and then, you know, the Survivor's Fury and everything. So back then, yeah, really, really nice, especially with the Thunder Heart skill. Just very, very good unit at that time. Unfortunately, that time has long passed. And so, even though it hurts me to say this, she is also going to the Chi tier, to the Graveyard tier, and yeah, she's not having any comeback. Also, I feel like, I mean, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, maybe there's a second unit for that, but if you have her and you put her on the home screen of the Evertale app, she's basically one of the few units that actually has some kind of animation going on. If you put her there, she has some kind of time stop or time Survivor's Fury stuff in the background if you use her as a screensaver, basically, in the Evertale front end. Alright, what else do we have? Antares was 2020 unit. No, 2021. I mean, there was some other Antareses before, but yeah, that was in spring 2021 that we got Storm Antares. And yes, exactly, Jared is already right. Fire Antares is going straight to the Graveyard tier as well. Unfortunately, she was also underwhelming already at the release. She was never as good as her Storm variant. Yeah, just a little bit underwhelming. She had some interesting ideas that were, you know, basically taken up later on for stronger burn chars. But yeah, back then, burn was really in the gutter. And Fire Antares couldn't change anything about that. The only thing she helped with and that she was very popular with was her art, which is admittedly very good. All her versions, all her forms are very nice, and she got pretty high up, I think, in my True Art Appreciation 2022. So yeah, she was one of the higher ups there. All right, and now we get to a certain era, guys. It is the Anyas that are up next. And, well, the first one was Storm Anya. And it's not the Storm Anya you think about when we nowadays say Storm Anya. That's why I usually call her New Anya. That one is only coming later. But yeah, the very first Anya was also Storm. She was a bit of a hybrid unit, damage dealer, but also a guardian or a part-time guardian that could also have some additional damage reduction, has some retribution drain, has some really, really nice stuff like Savage Force, the Swift Strike, just a really, really strong skill set. And she was the very first unit that introduced an auto barrier, basically helping her whole teammates with some additional damage reduction that we nowadays see on many other characters, including the new Anya. And yeah, that was extremely good. She was basically an absolute must-have in spring 2021. She was by far the #1 unit, even though I didn't do the statistics back then. That is very, very clear to me. But all that being said, unfortunately, she also goes to the G tier. An argument can be made that she's still helpful, at least, but usually in nowadays meta, she will not even get the turn. The auto barrier is nice, but you have so many stronger characters that do the auto barrier better than her, and so at this point, just not worth it to pick her up anymore. So basically for the G tier and for the F tier in my eyes, which is also where we just order them alphabetically, really don't pull for any of these units unless you want to get some fellowship. All right, and also don't invest any resources in these units. Good. What's next? Well, more Anyas, of course. Clanker. Earth Alira over Storm Anya 1, always as it should be. That was not the case for a long time, I suppose, yeah. Poor Anya. What's a good stun team? Well, we will get to all these good stun characters in this video. Alright, let's go through the next Anyas with a little bit more speed. I already noticed we are not advancing very quickly because I'm talking too much about each character. But all that being said, we will have Earth Anya up next. She was a full-time guardian, a poison guardian, unfortunately without any hold ground, and unfortunately only with a damage reduction of 10% per poisoned enemy, which even back then I thought is a little weak. They could have given her a 20% or maybe a 15% per poisoned enemy in my eyes, because even then it's 60% and she doesn't have that super strong, presence anyways. I mean, to be honest, she still made it into the top 10, but she was a guardian after all. And she could be utilized pretty much in most teams. But yeah, still at this point, a bit of a trouble not having any hold ground. And yeah, she goes to the same tier as the other Earth Guard that we saw before. That is Earth Alira. Now we have Earth Anya here as well. And now we have none other, guys, than Light Anya, a unit that was released in February 2023. So pretty much at this point 3 years ago. And that means not that long after, well, okay, no, I don't have a good comparison here yet on this tier list. But yeah, definitely a very, very old unit at this point. I'm the bot always is saying all in A for Anya. Well, no A tier yet for any of these. And Linux is saying S tier. Lore-wise, not that much time has passed between Storm Anya and new Storm Anya, I think. Well, maybe unfortunately I can't speak to this because I'm not very much in the lore nowadays. I kind of skipped all the events because I thought, okay, maybe I do a live reaction to some of these events sometime, and then I kind of never did, but maybe I should start that. But now for the Light Anya, for our stun absorbing guard that basically was at the top, in the top 10 for like 20 months or something, I think. So absolutely insane stuff. Even now, she's still very, very good in certain constellations. It's always helpful to have a stun absorber. It's always helpful to have a very strong guard that heals back up for the first few hits. And as such, she goes to the S tier, even though she's a 2023 unit. Surely by far the only one that is so high up. That is absolutely crazy performance by this Light Anya. And then later on, we got a release of Water Anya, and Water Anya was also at the top of the meta. She was actually the very first unit that broke the 10 million true power barrier, because she was that strong. Definitely insane stuff. Really, really great survivability, because back then we didn't have much execute skills. And she had back then also the very best instant skill of all time, that helped her team, dealt a lot of damage. Reset her power barrier and all that good stuff. So yeah, that is absolutely insane stuff that Water Anya brought to the table, and she dominated the SSR World Rankings for quite a long time afterwards. But at this point, she only makes it into the C tier. So the mighty have fallen once more. But yeah, I think it's fair enough. Alright, I'm missing a lot of clanker talk in the chat, or wait, what? Robot chat, I guess. Still very usable. Stun absorber on Light Anya, absolutely. Mary isn't a robot. B tier, please. Well, pretty close. And let's see now where the final Anya goes. I guess, guys, maybe some of you might already know it. She is that disabling Storm Guard, and she was the very first unit that had actually extra HP, basically going all the way to the top, breaking some power records in game. And she was also the very first unit that I fully maxed out. I also have a video on that. I did it all in one go straight after getting her. I was fully convinced that this unit is the meta for the foreseeable future, and you know, every single HP that she has makes it more likely that she survives forever, or at least for 1000 time units, or until she gets instant death. So yeah, this is a clear thing. Everybody already knows it in the chat as well. She goes straight to the SSS tier, our very first SSS tier unit today. So we have 3 A's here already in the different S tiers. New Anya, Anastasia and Light Anya. And we are still not done with A's. There are still quite a few more of them before we get to the Astrids. And that is Apollo and Artemis, even though even a double A unit, so to speak. And she was the only ever unit that was made to be burn and stealth. Something with that endless burn was taken up again in the Siegfried skill set. But back then, that was a total flop. It didn't really hit how it was supposed to, and didn't really get into the meta much. It wasn't a weak character by all means, but it wasn't meta breaking by any chance. And yeah, I think she was not made out for that stun meta we were in back then. So yeah, that is A was peak even. Okay, interesting. So Jared is the burn guy, so he must know. But yeah, let's see how Apollo and Artemis are ranked. That is going straight to the G tier. Of course, I think nobody expected otherwise. But yeah, she is not cut out for this meta anymore and was never really top meta. Then we have Aria coming up next. She is kind of the Mori factory. Back then it was pretty crazy when she was released. Everybody was saying, oh my goodness, what is this? She was endlessly producing Moris, really a blood renaissance in the meta back then. But she had some impact, but in the auto arena, never really all that much. And yeah, even nowadays, you know, blood units are much crazier than that. But back then, that was very interesting. For example, her Blood Reaper skill, which sacrificed the Mori, but then added another Mori straight away in the back. So basically a blood unit without actually losing any of these Moris in the back. And so yeah, she is nevertheless still going to the G tier. So this dark unit isn't really where it's at anymore in the meta. And then one of my absolute favorite units of all times, well, okay, that's maybe praising a little bit too hard, but definitely my favorite off-banner unit that you can get. And none other than this off-banner is Artimeia. She has that stun entry, thundering entry, and if you limit break her, she also has that spirit plus entry. No, it's the other way around, I think. So basically she has spirit plus entry, 3 spirit on her entry for your team, and she has the thundering entry, which means if you limit break her, she will stun the lowest time unit enemy for you. And then she was always good in the auto play because basically she couldn't do much wrong. You know, she was healing back up your units. She was doing some pain spirit for the generation. She was doing some purification or some attacking. So in the sense that we were kind of struggling with dumb AI back then, or old characters not dealing well with the new auto arena, Artimeia was definitely holding up very, very good. And what happened to the chat? I don't know. It seems fine, everything. Glazing the G tier. No, actually, she is going to the F tier. So congratulations to Artimeia for making it just a little bit higher up. Then again, you know, she is an off-banner unit, so off-banner units are a bit hard to tier. I'm correcting for that a little bit, but we will have some off-banner units go here where I think they might be better suited for the G tier. Then again, you know, off-banner units people always get, and so it's probably nice to know which ones are a little bit better than the other ones. So yeah, F tier, Artimeia is definitely one of them. All right, and now we get to the Astrids. It's just 6 Astrids, okay. Actually not that many, now that I think about it. Wow, is that correct? We haven't had an Astrid for so long, I just realized that. What the? That has been forever. Commander Astrid came out in 2023. So we haven't seen a new Astrid SSR for 3 years? I mean, she was in Anya, in Anya's chars as a side character. So yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, seems like we haven't had her for a very long time. Should be coming back hopefully at some time. All right, let's see how we continue. with these Astrids. Maybe let's go through them quickly. The first one was the very first Fire Astrid. She was buffed later on, actually. So at her release, she was not as powerful as now. Now she has the Intense Burn. She always had that kind of ignition charge. Yeah, ignition charge, I guess. And then she also always, not always had that permanent 30% healing, which was pretty broken, as we can also observe right now in the historic PvP and Shadow League, but that was added already just later on, because first she only had that healing when she was actually burning on her turn. But yeah, all that being said, she goes to the G tier now. Graveyard Tea for her. And Water Astrid, I mean, the first form is also nice, but I actually enjoy her Fully Awakened art a lot. One of my favorite arts in Evertale. And she is a stealth unit. She had that stealth banish, which was very interesting because she could banish one of the main opponents back then in manual PvP early on, potentially. And so yeah, that was what was interesting about her. Of course, she has very high time units, as was usual back then for stealth units, before we saw the next level stealth units in Storm Elmina and Earth Musha. And that's actually a good point, because we might see a new Earth Musha coming up soon. But yeah, she's going to the G tier as well. Actually, wait, let's do it like this. Let's put the chat here. Yeah, we continue on to Earth Astrid, who came out next, and she had the auto poison on entry for enemies. That was very, very strong back then for the meta, especially in combination with Dark Reset. And she also had the auto life flip, which was also pretty crazy back then, because if you didn't kill her off, then she would just heal back up straight away, especially if she was very close to dying. So that is a very, very strong thing that was going on there back then. And despite all that, she's going to the G tier now. And the same is true for Dark Astrid. She was the kind of New Year's unit back then. Actually, might have been, I think, the very last unit of Evertale 1.0. Then they kind of took a one month break and put out Evertale 2.0. And then the very first character of Evertale 2.0 was Light Mirai, if I recall correctly. So yeah, she was the very last one. She was kind of a savage unit, really based on getting enraged, doing some vigor impacting, and then hopefully getting 1 or 2 kills to unlock her other skills. So yeah, not that much great things to say about her, except that also her art, actually for Earth Astrid and Dark Astrid, I feel like both of them actually made it to the semi-finals in my True Art Appreciation contest back then. So they must be fan favorites in terms of the art, but as much as the impact on the meta goes, Dark Astrid never had much, especially considering that Auto Arena was introduced right afterwards and she couldn't get done much. Anyways, and then we got the new Fire Astrid, and that was Bright Astrid, the first fully fledged, well, was it the first fully fledged Fire Guard? Actually, it might have been, but we might have to ask Jared in chat for that. But yeah, she was the Burn Guard, and she was also a guard that was used in many other teams except for, besides Burn, but she sets fire to her teammates, so I didn't like using her with units that actually have hold ground. I never got her myself, but all that being said, she is still actually pretty decent. You can still use her sometimes in Burn teams, maybe later on in some platoons, and as such, she's the very first unit that actually makes it to the E tier, so congratulations for that. And then we also have Commander Astrid, which was the third Fire Astrid, and she actually brought back the Burn meta in 2023, single-handedly basically, at first, with all that great starting power. She basically flipped the switch on Burn teams to actually become these early on steamrollers. No longer it's necessary to just set yourself up and suffocate against poison, but she made it so that your team is ready to go straight away. She also had the Guard Incinerator, instant skill. Very, very nice stuff from her, but at this point, yeah, it's E tier for her, so that was back then, and now it's no longer the case. Alright, that is all the Astrids, and we are done with the A SSRs, guys. How are we feeling about that? This is the list so far. We have 3 units up in the S tiers, and I don't know how many that is. That might be... Whoa. Okay, that's that's like 14 units in the G tier already. Great. But let's see how it continues. And let's see what the chat is writing. G tier gonna be stacked, absolutely. John and Jane are placeholder tiers. All my Astrids are goaded. Astrid, a new Astrid is coming this March. Jane Zixer told me. Alright, first burn tank was level 80. Well, okay, Jana Fat, I wouldn't count. I mean, SSR guard, you know. Bahamut, please, above G tier. Well, depends on which Bahamut we are talking about here. Bahamut, of course, the original dragon was introduced with the super poison. Poison random, a bit like the Fornaxos of poison. I got him myself back then, but ultimately I have to say I was a bit disappointed. He had the epic art, actually. I think he was the winner of True Art Appreciation 2022, and has some really great full awakening art, or evolution basically, in the 3 forms. Really one of the best arts Evertale has to offer, but unfortunately this is not an art tier list, and so unfortunately I have to put him into the G tier, straight to the bottom. But the good news is for the Bahamut lovers that we have a new Bahamut in town. And oh my goodness, okay, it's getting really tight here. Actually, I wanted to give me a moment, guys, before we continue. I changed it, but somehow I didn't save it. Let me quickly check something, guys. I wanted to change the stream to actually, you know, showing the chat in a boxed way. Let's see if I can change that real quick. All right, let's see. Maybe it works now. Ah, there we go. Okay. Chat going darker. Yeah, now it goes dark. But now I think maybe that works a little better to actually make it readable. All right, then let's continue, guys. Unfortunately, I stopped in the middle of Bahamut, I realized. So sorry for that, for those who are urgently waiting for the light Bahamut rating. And light Bahamut actually probably, interestingly, the strongest burn unit right now, even though she's light. I mean, there can be an argument for Don Quixote, but the impact of light Bahamut right now, according to the data, is actually bigger. And she actually makes it to the SS tier. She has a really nice get turn mechanic. She has the Bahamut Blast. Some really nice stuff in her skill set. Sometimes she's vulnerable against certain units, and that's holding her back a little bit, but nevertheless, she's very high up there, especially because she can be combined with other unit types, so she's not fully dependent on being run in a burn team, and that is probably the big reason why she's actually up there in the SS tier. Alright. There's still no SSR that starts with the letter X. No, I don't think so. Yeah, good point actually. And let's continue with none other than Callen, also a fan favorite or Evertale favorite for quite a long time. They actually spammed us with Evertale units, even though they changed her quite a bit from the first version to the other versions. But yeah, the original Callen, Fire Callen, was of course a great Crisis unit that actually brought Crisis back into the meta. And as such, that was pretty insane. As Jared is saying, she was so good. She had some crazy survival armor that was pretty sick back then when you couldn't ignore things. And she had the Purify Heal, the very first skill that both purified and healed for 25%. Even though it cost like 1 spirit back then, that was insane, especially she was a crisis unit, so she didn't mind getting low on HP, and then she had the crisis power as well, I think, so that means her crisis blast or whatever it was called was also extremely strong in terms of damage output. You could basically kill an Earth Astrid just with 1 strike. So yeah, that was very, very good, but that is history now, as they say. And as such, unfortunately, we have to put her into the G tier. So she's joining Bahamut there. And then we got Water Callen. Water Callen, actually the very first unit that brought imposters to the game. Sleepy Sabotage, her skill was called. It cost 3 spirit and just basically replaced it with 1 imposter and pushed back the unit, so it wasn't a random banish like it is nowadays. But yeah, still very, very strong. She had some spirit loot as well. She had the Savage Force, which she could easily unlock with that imposter on the enemy team. And she had the sleep attack as well. She wasn't really a sleep unit per se, but one of the very best universal units for at least 1 year after her release. Back then the meta was moving much slower than it is nowadays, but nevertheless she still goes to the G tier, unfortunately. She has the flip sleep at the Hold Crown Plus, so an argument can be made that she's still pretty decent, but as you can see already, we are filling up the G tier today. Everything above needs to cross a certain true power threshold to actually get into the F tier or higher. And yeah, so don't pull for her at this point unless you go for a fellowship. Dark Callen is next. She's also going to the G tier, graveyard tier that is. She was a bit unlucky, I would say, as she was released between Dark Jeanne and Storm Elmina, which, you know, are 2 absolute top tier units. A little bit unlucky there in terms of that timing. And so the momentum was always against her. Then again, she wasn't that great of a unit. She still had the Guard Destroyers. She had a bit of a Poison Burst, which was interesting because it dealt damage and actually poisoned an enemy. She also had that Savage Poison skill and stuff like that. But yeah, just not good enough, unfortunately. And then we got the counterpart, which is Light Callen. And she had the Light Speed Entry. I'm not sure, might have even been the very first to have that. Basically getting the turn immediately when she enters the battlefield, and then possibly doing a guard knockout, or going back into reinforcements but yet again after some time. So that was definitely good. Actually, I just realized I switched these 2. So this is actually Light Callen, and this is Storm Callen, so apologies for that. They look really really similar, but I think I just realized it in time. Yeah, I think Storm Callen came out before her. And Storm Callen, of course, was a storm unit, a stun unit that actually had super high hate, and it was actually a great tactic that I deployed for a very long time to have her at super low power at just 1 copy and just there to be killed straight away to enable, for example, your Earth Musha to become enraged and also get the stealth status effect, and all your other teammates basically get boosted by her because of that quickening as well that she does when she dies. So she had a very, very strong revenge effect, but also a very high hate level, which made that combination pretty perfect. However, if you wanted to actually use her as a DPS, because she has a time assassin skill for example as well, not that great. But yeah, at least the fully awakened art definitely had some fans in the community. So yeah, that is something. Drubo is saying chat is getting what? But yeah, we continue because we have Cera coming up next. So unfortunately, yeah, all Collins are in the G tier, but Cera of the Earth element is up next, and she is not going to the G tier, I can already tell you. But there is one thing that is holding her back, definitely, and that is that she's not immovable. And at this point in the meta, now with Dark Musashi coming out as well, and Momotaro obviously everywhere, that is a big problem. She can be pretty strong. She has the Earthen Might potentially on her side to actually boost up the damage of all her fellow teammates very, very highly. And yeah, I mean, once she gets the kills, once she gets the Earthen Might going, definitely a very, very strong unit. But in general, in this kind of meta right now, not super high up. She is going to the S tier. So Cera is certainly up there, but not quite top tier. Oh, I'm so bored always is already saying goodnight. That's unfortunate. Maybe I should have started earlier. But good night to you. And oh no, actually I'm so bored always is staying there. No comment is going. So goodbye to no comment, and glad to still have I'm so bored always with us. She's S tier. Yes, Dubro got that right. And yeah, I got it now. And yeah, now we go to Cerberus, guys. So that was the second really big burn guard, and I said it back then a lot of times. While she was very specific to burn because she stuns her own team sometimes, in general she was even a stronger guard than Light Anya. I mean, she was stun immune, she had all the same heals, she had more damage output, she had that mega healing burn for helping out. Yeah, Cerberus was just really strong unit, and she is still pretty good. Jared says even that Cerberus will always be SSS in my heart. I'm not sure actually, I feel like she never made it quite up there because of that niche factor where it's like, okay, if you run her outside of burn, back then burn units were the only ones that were stun immune, you might be in trouble. And but she is still a decent unit, she is still a decent guard. But at this point, and with Don Quixote coming out, she dropped a lot in terms of the data. Unfortunately, I have to say she only goes to the B tier at this point. Burn in general isn't holding up too well right now after the most recent releases. But yeah, B tier for Cerberus. And then we get to Chronos, guys. Let me actually drink some water first. Okay, Chronos is up next, guys. I don't know what your Chronos are, your thoughts on Chronos are. Blasphemy on B tier for Cerb. Well, I mean, you know, a lot of units have come out since. She's a very old unit at this point. But yeah, Chronos, guys. What is to say about Chronos? Still some nice synergies with certain units. Definitely nerfed a little bit, but yeah, still stun immune, sleep immune, still helpful. But against the frost burns and the disables that are getting more common, it is a struggle. She has good synergies with Zeus, for example, and also some other units because she helps to stun the enemy team and also advance the turns of your own team. So definitely still a strong unit, but to get the first kills is getting difficult, especially with her time spears that are not doing all that much against pretty much all the newly released unit. And I thought Chronos was male. Well, let's see, but Linux is absolutely right. Chronos is going to the SS tier, and actually still going here. So congratulations to Chronos. She was really good for a long time, but never made it, I think, quite to the top. I think New Anya was always the top, right, during her old era. So yeah, never got that #1 spot, if I'm not mistaken. Am I mistaken? No, I feel like I have to look that up at some point. But yeah, nevertheless, let's move on to the Cinderellas, which was also a very big. The first Cinderella was absolutely dominating. Similarly, a strong summer unit like Chronos was. Basically, every team had to have Cinderella. Burn teams had to have Cinderella. Every other team had to have Cinderella, even though she had a Hypnoblast, which kind of put some enemies to sleep. Her Survivor's Fury, or Survivor's Storm rather, was insane because it was an instant skill with super high damage. I think the highest at that point in time. She could alternate it with the Hypnoblast, and the most important thing is whenever a unit on the enemy team had armor or stealth, she would hit it and get another turn, which was absolutely crazy back then. Basically the Whale Breaker passive, and that kind of single-handedly pushed stealth back in the meta after dominating it for basically 1.5 years at that point. So yeah, very good performance. But let's stop talking about Cinderella, I guess. And why is this so transparent, the chat? Let me check. Okay, there's no way for me to make it less transparent, it seems. So yeah, unfortunately, but hopefully it's still readable for you guys on the screen. Definitely want to have the chat also give some opinions in there. Alright, yeah, so Cinderella, where does she go at this point after me glazing her for some time here? She goes to the E tier at this point. Yes. Right next to the Astrids. Yeah, unfortunately, but yeah, that is where she belongs at this point. Then we have Dark Cinderella, the Berserker unit that actually brought some repeat executes, some very strong executes to the battlefield, given her Spirit Steel mechanic, or, you know, 0 Spirit, 10 Spirit activation of her Berserker skill. Of course, she's very vulnerable to stun, to sleep, to basically any status effects, but she also had the 150 time unit reset for her Hold Ground time lock, so Hold Ground Plus, so that was actually very strong. And when she was released, she was definitely a top 3 unit. But at this point, where does she land? She goes to the C tier. Alright, and then we have a final Cinderella, the weakest of the bunch, at least based on her power at release, in a relative sense. She was the sleep version of Cinderella's, actually nightmare version, because she was spamming sleep like there was no tomorrow, forced sleep that is. But at that point it was already starting to become a bit of a tricky situation for regular sleep. And so she was never really at the super top, but she was a very good one copy unit for the reinforcements as well for standard teams, because, you know, sometimes she would just sleep the enemies and then get them down after some time. So yeah, that was pretty good stuff from Water Cinderella. And right now she goes also to the C tier. Actually, I feel like this. Yeah. 2 Astrids, 2 Cinderellas in the E tier. That seems very poetic. And then we got to Clare, guys. Clare, one of the strongest execute all units well to this day, and definitely making waves in the Evertale meta in August this year. But unfortunately, Clare at this point is getting very vulnerable. She has that kind of regular burn. She is very vulnerable to certain status effects. Yes, she is still a staple in many burn teams, and she has a very nice entry effect as well. Then again, you really want her to survive a long time, so better maybe to have her up early. At least she is immovable, so that is something going her way, but it is very difficult for her to stay burning. But if she gets one turn while she already has the sky... No, it's not Skybreaker, sorry. What was the skill name of her execute all skill? The Skybreaker was for Masamune. Now I'm switching them up. But yeah, Clare at this point is going to the S tier. Congratulations for Clare. She still got what it takes to be considered an S tier unit, but of course, considering that she was briefly SSS tier, that is also quite the fall for her already. Ah yeah, Silver Sky Slash. Thanks for reminding me. that was the name. And yeah, indeed, Clare got smoked by sleep at this point. Speaking of sleep, we have Clarice. With a very strong unit. Actually, I just realized I made a little mistake on the Water Alira side. That was not the Assassin unit, that was the Survivor and Nightmare Drain unit. Clarice is actually the unit that brought the Dream Assassin, which was a very strong attack against sleeping enemies that ignores armor, and that was basically the counter to the Crisis meta at the time against somebody like Fire Callen, for example. And so yeah, she was definitely a good unit back then. She had a one-time use, I think 5 spirit cost skill that slapped 2 enemies. So definitely quite some investment there. But yeah, in terms of her tier now, she's still going to the graveyard tier. So yeah, not much time to waste there. And then we also had Light Clarice, which was more of a Mori unit. A bit of an interesting one, but definitely one of the weaker units in Evertale 2.0. She was released early on there in the summer times of 2021 and never really made that much of an impact on the meta, unfortunately. Just something missing in her skill set. She wasn't outright bad, but I still remember thinking she was pretty bad when she was released. Like, I thought definitely not a good unit. Easy skip for me back then. And so, yeah, no wonder she actually ends up in G tier, where there are also much better units. And then we have Storm Clarice, actually the second unit ever that had an execute skill in her skill set right after Dark King Arthur, but actually the first one that had one that can be repeated. So not only one-time use. And yeah, she's actually was a good unit, and also had a great Triumph skill, probably one of the very best. That gives other units a turn, and she gets faster and faster, you know, with her charges and all that kind of stuff. So really, really good stuff once she gets going. But of course, compared to the execute skills nowadays, this is barely giving you a yawn. And as such, unfortunately, she only makes it into the F tier. So those were all the Clarices. No, actually, there's still the Dark Clarice, of course. How could I ever forget my favorite unit? It's Dark Clarice, the poison unit, and she is definitely a unit to watch out for. She has some RNG. If the RNG hits right, she can be very good. I don't like the time locks on her skill set. I don't like the RNG of throw knives, mostly. I mean, sometimes you can get lucky with it, of course. The disabling is a problem for her. Yeah, there's definitely better units at this point. Then again, not so many better poison units, to be fair. So if you run poison, she can still be an okay choice, but she is only going to the A tier. Actually, our very first A tier unit. Now the only tier that is still missing is the D tier. Let's see who can fill that one up as we move on to the C units, the Cleopatras, I mean. Alright, what else do we have here in the chat? Coming again to G tier polishing. Don't worry, Jared, I'm a dip back out. Gonna prove to Stoic I win in CA. No, you won't. I'm rooting for Stoic, lol, you see. Okay, some nice banter going there. What about face reveal form true? Yeah, not in the cards today, unfortunately. But yeah, maybe for my true supporters at some point. Nah, I mean, maybe, you know, when Evertale has end of service, maybe then it's start of service of True's face reveal. Alright, so moving on to Cleopatra. And yeah, Cleopatra is a good unit, definitely was meta defining back then. She had a checkmate skill that was very early on, a very strong execute potentially, the one-time execute that she has. But of course the big thing is the Dusk Mirage, her random banishing imposter replacement that was pretty big back then. And also, you know, when she killed, she had some nice effects there. At first she was even broken because execute skills didn't work against her when there was imposters on the field, something that some people might have thought of Dark Musashi as well. But yeah, executes do work against her, so that was a little bummer. But especially with the later released Percival, Cleopatra was insane. And actually, she is the first unit that makes it into the D tier, so congratulations to Dark Cleopatra. Unfortunately nowadays, even though she has all these kind of wards and stuff like that at the beginning, she's a bit too slow to usually get to do her thing. True is secretly already revealed, but he's one of the SSRs. Yeah, for that you can check out my Evertale True Creo SSR video. Of course I'm reading the chat up though. I mean, you know, I'm checking, I'm trying to multitask, obviously, given that I have the tier list in one big browser window. Unfortunately, I don't have a second screen, so I have to go back and forth to keep track. But yeah, imagine he looks like Falchuk. Well, I'm not saying I don't, but I'm also not confirming that. You look like Nagi, oh my god. Oh, where's the wilted rose when I need it? Okay, next one is Earth Cleopatra, of course. She was released afterwards, but was a bit underwhelming compared to the original Cleopatra. Of course, she can still be good. She's a bit more of the cursed poison variant. What's also confusing is that she was named Dark Cleopatra after we just had the first original Dark Cleopatra, so that is why I always have to say Earth Dark Cleopatra to her. And the good thing is they are not that far apart in terms of the tiers, so not that important if you switch them up. But she is indeed going to the C tier, so she's actually higher than her original version now, which I'm not sure, I feel like it wasn't the case when she was released. Back then Dark Cleopatra was still the better pick than Earth Cleopatra, at least for the general teams or the general population of Evertale. And then we come to none other than Cthulhu, while people in the chat are still speculating of what I look like. He looks like Quee, oh my goodness. Solid hypothesis. Okay, I'm getting flamed here by my chat. Awesome. But moving on to Cthulhu, which was absolutely insane when she came out. Definitely a meta breaker if I've ever seen one. She's a poison unit but doesn't need poisoned enemies. She's just going on a roll. She's completely RNG, so she can only do one skill whenever she gets the turn. It's only one that is unlocked, basically. And so yeah, she's insane. When she was, getting defeated, she usually became a guard for 200 time units with 90% damage reduction, which was crazy because back then we didn't have executes that ignore armor. Now that we do have that, and now that we have executes that are much more common, her survival skills have been reduced, and of course the disabling and the frost burning and stuff like that, not ideal for her. Although frost burn doesn't matter to her because she gets purified, so she would still get the turns from entries, so that is nice. But yeah, Cthulhu at this point, still making it to the A tier, still very nice unit, especially also for clearing some event stages, for example. But yeah, unfortunately, not that high anymore. And then we get Cyrus. Well, Cyrus was basically the ultimate comeback unit, always putting him in the very last place, hopefully not having any allies with him, and then his armor was actually pretty crazy. His brave armor and his brave Avenger skill and all that kind of good stuff. He could really turn things around. Was very hard to kill back then in manual PvP, but that was like 6 years ago, maybe at this point. Oh my goodness. But yeah, Cyrus, of course, is going to none other than the G tier. And now we are done with all the C's, guys. So let's see where we are at before I check the chat again. We are already getting to the D's, so that is some nice progress, I guess. This is what the tier list currently looks like. Each tier already has at least one unit, so that is nice. But still a lot more units to come, actually. So if we look down here, oh my goodness. Okay, let's let's not check there because it's still gonna take a while. I'm gonna check the chat instead. Turns out I'm Kaguya. Wow, the ideas get even crazier. But yeah, now we go to Da Vinci. Da Vinci actually not even 1 year old at this point, or maybe just about to hit 1 year old, I think. Definitely an interesting unit, definitely undervalued at the time of her release, it feels like. And she was overshadowed by Kochiro, who was coming out right before her, pretty much. But also an interesting light unit. Problem, of course, is that she needs kills. She has the very, very nice instant skill and could get repeat turns, get repeat sweeps, and has some interesting execute skill as well, where if she gets a kill on a non-conjured enemy, another non-conjured enemy dies as well. So some very interesting stuff here, but unfortunately too vulnerable to certain meta units at the time, and so she never really took off. And right now she goes to the C tier. And we move on to Diabolos, another dragon. And that dragon is, yeah, at this point not good anymore. I don't know what to tell you. He was never really that good. I mean, he had Life Flip Ally, he had Enrage for himself. He could Enrage an ally as well, although then that ally would lose HP. Payback Strike was really powerful, of course, but yeah, not even back then a very meta-defining unit in the manual PvP time. And then we go to the Don Quixote today. And Don Quixote is somebody who is gonna be very, very interesting. She is a god that is absolutely busted in certain moments. Could probably be more easily be defeated than somebody like New Anya, and is a bit more niche than her. But for a burn team, definitely the first choice, and the give turn whenever she survives hits is insane actually. That is actually super helpful for her team, even outside of a burn team. And so it is a bit surprising actually to me, but she only makes it into the S tier. I really thought she might go to the SS tier, but the data doesn't allow me to put her there, and so she only makes it into the S tier for now. But yeah, I think she will be staying relevant for a long time to come. Definitely gonna be a top tier unit for a while, even though she doesn't quite reach the mass appeal of somebody like New Anya, who is just more universally usable and arguably also still very valuable in burn teams. Do you have a mastery points guide? No, unfortunately I don't. But maybe I'll make some sometime. But it's not at the top of my list right now. Could be interesting though. Maybe as a little short video of just my thoughts on mastery. Okay, then we are going to move on to none other than Druke. Basically the budget version of Fire Astrid. I mean, there's really nothing about him that is better than Fire Astrid. Now that Fire Astrid has been buffed. He was, never that good. His damage output a bit weak. Just some regular ignition, needing a lot of spirit for everything he does. Doesn't really have any defining features except being basically a standard burn unit. Could also be, besides the healing when he's burning and gets the turn, could be an SR unit, to be honest, because his skill set is very unimaginative. And as such, of course, he goes to the G tier. And then we have Elizabeth. Elizabeth actually already getting a little bit old, but considering that she wasn't even that high at her release, she's still a very interesting unit with her strong entry effect, with her very, very strong spirit production, with some of her repeat turns, and her Monarch token is an interesting addition for sure as well. Elizabeth definitely something to be looking out for, and that is still very interesting to certain sleep teams, just as a very strong reinforcement unit. Very, very nice stuff. Bro is ultra OG. Oh, you mean how to get mastery scrolls? I thought how to distribute the points was what I was thinking. All right, then Elizabeth, we talked about her. She is going to the S tier actually, so congratulations for that. And we move on to the Elminas. Starting off with Dark Elmina, the stealth unit that was released, I think, in September 2020. No, not 2020, 2019. Yeah, it was a very interesting stealth entry with her clones, basically one of the very first clone units, I would say, maybe the first. And yeah, so she was interesting, has some strong stealth rate skills, but of course, at this point, she is basically done for, and as such, she gets the G tier. The same is true for Light Elmina. This Christmas unit was basically all about survival and healing herself with some healing armor and stuff like that. The very first Christmas unit of Evertale actually released in 2019. That was briefly after I started playing, just a few months after, and I was thinking, should I get her? She looks very good. But she wasn't that great. She was good, but compared to some other chars that were already released back then, she had a hard time. Water Elmina, on the other hand, was definitely a very, very strong stealth overdrive unit that came out in 2020, in the summer of 2020, and yeah, I mean, really a lot to like about her, especially at the beginning of a battle. She had pretty high speed. She started with the stealth already and could do some great stuff. She had some super spirit, which was only 50 time unit skill and didn't even cause her to lose some pain spirit like it was standard back then. So definitely someone who made an impact, but at this point doesn't make any impact. She's going to the G tier. And up next we have Storm Elmina first. Storm Elmina definitely meta defining. Of course, she was pushed back a little bit by Earth Musha, yet another stealth unit that was released right afterwards, but her hate level was so low that she could just cruise through the enemy team with her stealth power. Her damage output with that stealth power could be enormous after the Survivor's Rate unlocked. All her attacks ignore armor. A lot of the attacks ignore ignore like revenge passives and stuff like that. As stealth attacks do. So yeah, that was a very, very strong unit back then. Number one for many months. She's going to the F tier now. And then we have Fire Elmina, who had that burn stun entry. Very, very interesting fifth unit for many different teams actually. But at this point she's also going to the F tier. I'm trying to keep myself a little bit briefer now. And now before we go to Modern Elmina, do we have anything in chat? Eat carrot, and to be a true carrot. Yeah, to be a true carrot you just need to hit that subscribe button and the like button on every video and post I make, so it's very, very easy and straightforward. Now for Modern Elmina, on the other hand, she's of course a banger. She is insane in terms of the give turn to her teams, the purify to her teams, the entry effects, and of course the cloning once she gets going. She is a unit that can really turn around battles. If you doubt that, you just have to look up the Platoon Wars 3 that we recently had. Definitely insane skill set. She's also permanently stun immune, which is of enormous help. And as such, Modern Elmina is actually going to the SS tier. Congratulations to Modern Elmina, definitely, possibly the very best reinforcement that you can have in your team right now. Speaking generally, of course, but yeah, Modern Elmina definitely up there. Also helpful at one copy, although not as much as I would like her to be, especially with all these execute skills that are going around. So yeah, probably would want her to be fully awakened and fully busted in terms of resources. And now the final E unit. It is Excalibur. And A tier for real, Linux is saying in the chat. Not so sure about that. Definitely a nice value at one copy as well. I had her there in the reinforcements for quite a while. Also nice to have her with 4 of these super Moris coming into reinforcements for you. So before we had somebody like strong units that are benefiting from that. I mean, to be fair, she was released after Cthulhu, so that was already a bad timing for her, given that back then Cthulhu was just mowing through these super Moris. And of course the survivability wasn't that great. I would have liked some more survivability if there are Moris in the back. Definitely something to be expanded upon. But yeah, I think still basically the last blood unit that we had. So definitely a nice callback. Has been over 1 year at this point, and she is going to the D tier. She before or after? She's going below Dark Cleopatra. All right. Now we are done with all the E's. We are already moving on to the F's, and that is a very short section, so that is lucky for us, I guess. I'm the bot always says E tier. Well, it's the middle, it's the D tier ultimately. And now we go to Finn, our OG character, our main protagonist in Evertale, where does he go? Yeah, of course, he needs to go into a certain tier, and that is obviously the tier that is reserved for him. And that is the Finn tier. Well, you know, he is an off-banner unit, and as an off-banner he's still pretty decent. He has the nice stun entry, he is a good finisher unit, as we can see in historic PvP as well. He has that kind of desperate drain and stuff like that. All kind of good stuff. Of course, at this point, don't use or don't pull for him anymore, but, you know, if you get him as an off-banner, there can be an argument be made for at least using him for some time. And then we have another F unit, but this one is Fornaxos. It's a crisis unit, and crisis is an absolute crisis right now. As such, Fornaxos definitely has to go to the graveyard tier. Nothing he can do in the automata anyways. But yeah, back then, definitely the strongest crisis unit when he was released, although he was also buffed later on, so that's a bit hard to tell in hindsight. And then we have Frankenstein and Mary, possibly the worst unit, released in 2024. Oh my god, it was 2024. My goodness, how much time has passed. But yeah, anyways, I don't like your data, Drew. New Finn would be nice. New female Finn, fanboy Finn. Oh my goodness. Alright, moving back to Frankenstein. Frankenstein, how do I put this? Still kind of nice, and I saw potential when she was released, but of course there was no the mechanic was just too clunky, you know. Frankenstein was the strongest, or the combination was the strongest if both Frankenstein and Mary are on the field, but it was super hard to achieve that, and even if you achieved that, it wasn't that crazy. And it's a bit of a shame because I think I really like her skill animations, so it would have been nice to see more of that in the meta, but it is what it is, and she still makes it to the E tier. And then we have Freya, the first Hold Ground Plus unit that didn't have any limit on how often she can reset it. Yes, she had to do certain things to reset it, but she could theoretically do that forever. And that was before we got any kind of execute skills. Long before we got any execute skills, actually basically 1 year before we got any execute skills. Unfortunately, even though she is a nice kind of part-time guard and was very nice for universal teams, even for non-burn teams, and that is why I fully awakened her as well, even though I immediately had to regret it because 2 days later they brought out Storm Jeanne, but on an off day where nobody was expecting it. But yeah, Freya goes to the G tier, unfortunately. Sorry to say. Rest in peace, Freya, and that means we are already done with our F tier, not with our F tier, but with our F units. And now we go to the G units, which are a few more, but also not all that many. So I think we are progressing at a nice pace. Linux is saying D tier and E tier, not sure which units he was mentioning there, but yeah, everything basically goes into the G tier, it feels like. And of course, Gaia shouldn't be any exception because she was even a terrible unit when she was released. Yes, she has some interesting or nice entry effect, but nah, just really, really bad unit, honestly. Definitely one of the worst units of 2022. Then again, 2022 was a bit of a weak year anyways. Closing out the year was, I think, Gavine back then, Water Gavine, and she is also going to the G tier. Maybe all the G's go to the G tier, but yeah, Water Gavine. Some people were thinking, okay, she might be the worst unit to get the execute skill because her boss version had an overpower mechanic. But instead she joined them. She joined the Hold Ground Plus brigade that is hard to kill. But yeah, she was really about getting a savage skill set, but then she loses her passive. So I wasn't that big of a fan back then because the Killer Instinct was a bit meh as a passive, even then when the passives were much smaller. But yeah, Gaia is so pretty. Yeah, she was actually doing pretty well in the art competition though. So Yeah, actually, yeah, I can see that her aesthetic is nice, but her skill set is just too bad. And then we go up to the Earth Gavine, which is already over 1 year old at this point, but she is holding up quite well, guys. She is going to the A tier, so Linux was nearly right there. Still very good if she's not encountering burn, and unlocks the cursed end. She was one of these first units that could really go on a killing spree, basically, with the cursed end executing. Then again, now that we have Dark Musashi, even that kind of unique thing basically went away. So yeah, that is that. Then we have Jeanne. Oh, actually, arguably a competitor for Frankenstein for worst unit. I think maybe, honestly, I think she's a worse unit. I mean, except if you're a whale, but if not, then I think she's a worse unit than Frankenstein. But nevertheless, she goes to the same tier. She goes to the E tier. And then we get to Gilgamesh, one of the first fire executors with the Royal Judgment if every unit is burning, which is super hard to achieve nowadays, of course, because we have units that are just permanently burn immune. Still pretty good unit, especially at release, even though that was already behind the curve for burn meta at that point. But yeah, he gets the D tier. Linux just noticed that Dark Clarice is A tier. Your slender never ends, nice. Goemon F tier, not gonna lie. Let's check it out. Umbra wants Jeanne 2.0, oh my goodness. Well, Goemon, where goes Goemon actually? Goemon, interesting unit, right? She is still the highest speed unit in the entire game. But her clones were a bit underwhelming. She can only use stuff when she's the last unit or when she's the very first unit, basically. So a lot that you don't have to like about her, but she still somehow makes it to the D tier. Still an okay unit, especially compared, if you think about what she can do. She usually can get to the scaling, and as such, maybe she's still sometimes good as a finisher unit or as a starter unit, you know, when you in a new server, she might be able to dominate there for a little bit. But yeah, Goemon is going to the D tier, and now we have none other than our favorite Grenzor, who is, of course, the god of Evertale. And all potential resides in Duplicap, let's see. Oh, true, actually, yeah. We had a lot of Duplicap Goemon spam. Let's see how it is this time in the next Duplicap that is upcoming. Chi for Grenzor. Linux is very mean to the god. Then again, Chi tier for Grenzor means, of course, god tier, and as such, I can get behind that. And Grenzor goes to the god tier, definitely deserved. He has some very nice Spirit Plus entry. Yeah, that's basically it. Some good hate, so could act as a pseudo guard sometimes, but doesn't have any hold ground. So yeah, Grenzor in god tier, definitely to be revered by his followers. And then we have Jirel, possibly one of the worst, or if not the worst unit in 2023. She was a cloning unit, but she was so restricted in her cloning probabilities that it just didn't work. She was basically a finisher unit, and even as a finisher unit couldn't do much. She goes to the Chi tier, and that is all Chi units done, and most of them are actually going to the Chi tier, so that is kind of ironic here with Gaia, Gavine, Grenzor and Jirel. And now we move on to H, and right after I drink one sip. Alright, Haku is basically the spiritual successor of Light Mirai. She was kind of a supporter. An interesting one with her Survivor's Wrath basically unlocking at some point and her hate going super high. basically wanting to be killed and then coming in later again to do it all over. Some strokes. Her art is very nice, I have to say. I think one of my favorite arts from that time period in 2022. But all that being said, she makes it to the F tier. Congratulations to Haku, that is already an achievement. The same cannot be said, unfortunately, for our Fire Hibiki, who was the app icon probably for the longest time of Evertale. And Fire Hibiki is actually was actually insane when she was released. Super high damage output. With her Ignition Rage Heal, she could basically set herself up for that. Well, no, it was just a Ignition. Or no, no, it was not an instant skill. Actually, what was an I don't know what her skill was named, but yeah, she was a Crisis Burn unit. A mix of both and strong in both units. She had the Crisis Drain, which kept her alive. Very good also at the beginning of the Evertale 2.0 meta. Basically, she was fighting with her poison enemy Dark Reset for the top spot of best DPS in that early times. But all that being said, she still goes to G tier. And then we have Light Hibiki, who was also very nice when she came out in the end of 2021. Got stuck in the meta at the top for quite a long time. She had the Lucky Moris on her side. She had a nice Vengeance Strike. She had the Stealth Hunter, which was, I think, a bit underwhelming. I would have liked something much stronger there. Basically, she has a Stealth Hunter skill, which is just like a normal attack. And if she hits a stealth enemy with it, it deals 200% instead of 100%, which is like, come on, just give it 500%, especially at that time. Stealth was everywhere, stealth was absolutely dominating, so would have been nice to have a little bit of a counter to her. Nonetheless, she was still good for what she did, and she goes to the F tier now. And then we have Dark Hibiki, so the youngest Hibiki. Actually, she was released exactly... Wait, let me fact check that real quick, but... Yeah, exactly 46 months after Light Hibiki, so that was a very long time to wait for her next version. But Dark Hibiki finally came out, and she was really strong for 2 weeks until Momotaro was released. So yeah, I mean, she is still a very strong unit, but the fact that she is not immovable, that she just gets pushed back nowadays in the meta, and Dark Musashi might not change that, is just a big kink in her armor. Despite all that, she's still a very strong unit, one of the very best poison units that you can have right now, and she goes to the S tier. Wasn't that 4 Hibikis? Oh no, that was just 3, you're right. Okay, never mind. Alright, then we go to Hichikata, guys, our favorite unit from the Dupli-Cup. Definitely a strong one as well. S tier because poison is cooked for Dark Hibiki is actually a good point from Lenok there. And yeah, Hichikata is a stealth unit. Is a guard destroyer, but she cannot do much against Storm Anya, obviously, because of that elemental disadvantage. Sometimes she can be going pretty crazy, but most of the times in the current meta she won't. And as such, she goes to C tier. Alright. And now we have Himiko, one of the fan favorites when she was released. She had the Vault Breaker, which was very nice. So the same thing that we have combined now in Dark Musashi with her getting the turns when she hits units that are at full HP. That was something that Himiko had back then. She also had the Divine Reflection, I think, which was kind of a nice, interesting mechanic. And welcome Bablo to the stream. Dawn dropped indeed, unfortunately. And Himiko, of course, dropped quite a bit as well since then. At some point, people even thought, oh, she might be number 1. We had some very fun live stream where it wasn't quite clear who is going to be the number 1 unit, and then it turned out to be Water Anya and not Himiko. And she goes to the E tier. And then we get Hokusai, guys. It's none other than Hokusai, the light unit that was pretty stable in the top for quite a few months before finally falling off a little bit. Still can be very nice with the Masterpiece. We saw it even happen in the recent Platoon Wars, where she had some very nice actions. But at this point, she just makes it to the A tier. Damn, what was her name again? That was Honoji, right? Yeah, Honoji. Very forgetful unit. She was released 2 weeks before Water Alice made her directly irrelevant again. Her skill set wasn't that convincing to begin with, much weaker than Nobunaga. And some interesting parts in her skill sets for sure, with the instant bazooka and stuff like that. But yeah, not that memorable of a unit. And as such, she still makes it to the F tier, but not more than that. And that means we are already done with all the H units, guys. So we are going in a good pace, I think. Oh, 1.5 hours already. We still have some nice crowd here in the live stream, so thanks for watching so far. But we still have more to go, of course, and we also still have the new units, including Valkyrie Reset, Zeus and Venus to be tiered. So yeah, forgettable. It has appeared in the latest event. Now I I expose myself as not having read the last event either. Yeah, I might have to start doing some lore videos, Linak, to really get up to speed as well. Imran, on the other hand, is actually the only unit that starts with an I, guys. The only SSR unit that starts with an I, so congratulations to Imran. To celebrate, he goes also straight to the G tier. He has the stun skin, and I mean, in the historic PvP tournaments and Shadow League, he's doing quite okay for himself. But it's still terrible in Auto Arena, and even in manual PvP sometimes you had to have him kill himself because of the Brash Strike, ignoring his hold ground. Yeah, so a very suicidal unit, let's put it like this. But still, he was a good stun unit at the start of Evertale. And then we have the Jeanne era, actually 5 of Jeannes to kick off the chase. Actually, the Jeannes are the only chase, so yeah, that's 5 chase coming up. And the first one was Light Jeanne with her Survivor's Fury, with her Mikaela, or Michelle as she was called back then, before the rename of that character. And she could call her to the battlefield, and then she was an auto guard, healing both her and her sister, and having just some very strong, very fast Survivor's Fury at her hand. She was a very strong unit, and especially it was great to have Mikaela or Michelle banish units, so that was the counter basically to Light Jeanne's counter, which was a bit like Dark Reset at the time. So it was all a matter of getting the speed right. Mikaela, of course, Light Mikaela was one of the speediest units as well, I think over 700 speed, so definitely noteworthy as well. But where is she in the current meta? G tier. So yeah, that was Light Jeanne, but then we had Dark Jeanne, and Dark Jeanne was really a dominating unit, besides the stealth units, of course, that kind of heavily countered her. But yeah, she was immovable. She had the constant revival from Mikaela, and whenever she died, she would get Mikaela, who had a very good entry effect, and then Mikaela only had to survive for 200 time units, which wasn't that long of a time back then. Of course, nowadays this would be insanely long. But yeah, Dark Jeanne was absolutely top tier for a long time. And as such, she has the honor to actually go to the F tier, so congratulations for that. Mikaela's faster than Dark Musashi, she solos her. Man, maybe someone looks her up, but I think she is. I think she only had like 30 time units till she got the turn, and that was the chance basically for a Dark Reset to kill her with a Guard Breaker. Otherwise, Light Jeanne and Mikaela became very much unstoppable for some time. And the next one is Water Jeanne, which has the very nice entry that kind of replaced Water Ray as the top sleep entry unit. Interestingly, Water Jeanne was the guard version, and Mikaela this time was the damage dealer. And that damage dealer was really crazy strong with the Nightmare Hunter and stuff like that. Really good stuff. In that skill set was a very, very important unit for sleep teams. But at this point, even though she still has the sleep entry, there's not much she can do anymore. She has to go to the cheat here. And then we have Storm Jeanne, of course, the strongest unit for many months at the beginning of 2023, when she was surprise dropped as the only ever unit that wasn't released on a Friday. And that was Storm Jeanne. Insane when she came out, because there was no executes, and her Mikaela that came in again and again revived her again and again, was basically a permanent guard for 100 time units and stuff like that. So really, really sick skill set, with the Survival Stun as well, with the Survivor's Judgment. Just a huge upgrade over Dark Jeanne, and absolutely meta defining at the time, together with none other than Storm Lancelot, the very first version. So yeah, that was very, very strong, and as such, she actually makes it to the E tier. So congratulations for that. Still can be nice, but of course, nowadays with all these executes, the times have gotten tough for her as well, even though she managed to stay at top of the meta for a very, very long time. And then the last Angel Jeanne version, the only one unfortunately that didn't have a separate Mikaela in her skill set, even though she's still on the images. Actually, wow, we didn't have a Jeanne for over 2 years. That is crazy. Basically in 2020 the first one was released, then 2021, 2022, 2023, arguably even a double. And then 2024 and 2025, we didn't get any Jeannes. Oh, now I might get into the Sydney Sweeney controversy if I talk like Jeannes all the time, but Angel Jeanne, unfortunately, also not what she could be in the end. Back then, with Earth Kaguya, she was an insane combo. Definitely very good at one copy as well, for stealth support. Definitely brought back stealth into the meta a little bit, and very interesting survival skill as well. And the lightspeed entry was very helpful to immediately pull off some very strong stuff there. So yeah, very, very good stuff from Angel Jeanne. Unfortunately nowadays with the execute skills, struggling quite a lot, and she goes to the D tier. No pants? Wait, who has no pants? What did I miss? Maybe they're busy reviving Excalibur as an angel. Okay. Alright, let's move on to Kaguya. Unfortunately, Destroyer can't be here apparently. But yeah, his favorite unit is there. And the first one was absolutely busted, together with Angel Jeanne specifically. But yeah, just a very, very strong unit. The Cursed Sleep passive was absolutely broken back then, especially because Burn didn't really have much of a say at the time. And yeah, she was just really, really good. Very good survival unit, very good stealth unit with that moonshot. And she goes to the D tier. And then we have Fire Kaguya, which was a bit underwhelming, released much later, didn't quite live up to the hopes of the Burn crowd, but Jared can probably attest to that. She is going to the D tier as well. And then we got Dark Kaguya. And she was also, yet again, underwhelming. Unfortunately, she's one of the weaker units from 2025. Still decent. But, you know, all in all, not much that she can do at this point. I mean, even with stun and poison entry and the hypnosis shenanigans is probably the only thing that is really good about her. And sometimes she has some broken stuff where she cannot, where she always heals back up and gets stealthed. But yeah, all in all, there's just not much good to say about Dark Kaguya, unfortunately. Is the music very loud right now? Really cool music you have. Jared in chat is saying Fire Kaguya is the worst unit ever designed. Nice. Never have I ever pulled a unit that didn't do anything. Dark Kaguya surely B tier or A tier? Well, you're close, but she's actually going to the C tier. So yeah, unfortunately, she's down. Actually, I was thinking, and maybe we'll still see that, but I feel like a new hypnosis unit is overdue that might be actually strong this time. I felt like Dark Musashi might have something, but obviously Dark Musashi is already strong enough without that. But yeah, let me check actually. Is the music fine or is it too loud? Should be fine hopefully, but let me know in chat if otherwise. And we can move on already to none other than Kaidaros, a female dragon. I think maybe the only female dragon. And that one is probably not super surprisingly going to the god tier as well. Yeah, I mean, has the pain spirit, has the permanent heal, has permanent poison immunity, so actually a unit that back then was countering poison to some degree, because back then poison units still relied on actually getting units to be poisoned before they could attack them. With powerful attacks, and so yeah, that was a bit of a poison counter, but other than that, nothing much to be said about her. But a lot to be said probably about our next unit, and that is the King Arthur series. And yeah, Dark King Arthur, I was actually not a huge fan of, but she still made it to the #1 spot. Definitely very strong in terms of the setup early on, but of course with a strong fall off, because outside of the front four, her use is very limited and she gets much weaker. Of course, the King's Dawn passive was extremely strong back then, but she was also not immovable, something that you need to keep in mind at this point. And as such, even though she was a #1 unit for a brief moment, before yeah, she will only go to the E tier. And then we have Storm King Arthur, one of my favorite units on the other hand, for quite some time. Also the best unit possibly for a level 1, so even at level 1 she had insane value for quite some time as an entry unit. And yeah, as a strong starter unit, of course, she was valuable for quite a time. She was released right after Musashi, after Water Musashi, and fully countered her. Basically, yeah, let's keep an eye out on some potential King Arthur release in the next weeks. But yeah, Storm King Arthur was super relevant for quite a long time. Still nice to have her in reinforcements. Very, very often she can reset her Hold Crown Plus. She had all these wards. She had a super strong Regal Barrage. She had that Wave Master skill, and that one is actually super good because it was an execute skill that could also be used on low HP units that weren't even highly stunned. So yeah, all in all, a very, very nice package. And she goes actually to the B tier now, which is our emptiest tier so far, joining Cerberus there. And then finally we have Revenant King Arthur, yet another Dark King Arthur variant that came out last year. And of course she improves on a lot of things of the previous King Arthur. She is the better unit, undoubtedly, in the current meta. But still, with that kind of poison skill set and with her being very vulnerable to like disables and frostburn and sleep, she is struggling. When she gets to do her insane devouring eclipse and her, you know, execute all skill and stuff like that, she can be insanely strong. But right now she only makes it to the S tier. Well, S tier is still very strong, obviously, as you can see, based on the units that are there. But yeah, she only makes it into the S tier. So those were the King Arthur's, guys. SK A tier, AK S tier. Well, that was pretty close because poison. Gambler's Execute, yeah, the Devouring Eclipse at least. That is a very interesting one. Could go either way. Alright, and then we move on to Kirin. Kirin, not much to say about him. He was very nice, or is very nice still in historic PvP. With the light healing and with the vigor armor and with the survivor's fury. But yeah, he joins Kaidaros here in the G tier. And then we got a new Kirin though, even though she looks a little different now. This Kirin is of course of the Storm variant and was released like 6 years after the original Kirin. So that is probably why she looks so different now. Yeah, in any case, Storm Kirin right now struggling. Of course, she's only good against stuns. Yes, she has some RNG execute. She has some purification stuff that is nice. But all in all, she goes to the A tier. So still nice as a reinforcement, especially if she can actually stun someone, which becomes less and less usual nowadays. But you know, for example, Dark Musashi also loses her stun immunity after some time. So maybe then Storm Kirin can put a stop to her shenanigans. Then we have Kisara, one of my favorite arts in the game. But this is not an art tier list and we don't have a K tier anyways. So that is why she is going to the G tier, this burn vigor impact unit. And then we have Kojiro. Of course, Kojiro, the last K unit. And as you noticed, a lot of these K units that we covered actually made it quite high in the rankings, including things like Kaguya and King Arthur. Kojiro is no exception. Kojiro was actually absolutely insane unit right before new Anya came out and even afterwards for some more months, with the first ever considerable execute skill. Linux already saying Kojiro SSS on release A tier now, and I can say that he is in fact right about that. So yeah, Kojiro goes to the A tier. Definitely struggling right now against stealth. Even getting the kills going is difficult. Then again, you know, against certain imposter groups, there's some good synergy together with Momotaro, basically potentially also with somebody like Dark Musashi. But yeah, her meta days are over, which is fair. I mean, she is already 1 year old. Then again, previous top units lasted quite a bit longer than that as well. And now we have Lancelot coming up next. We have 3 different Lancelots at this point. And yeah, same as Clarice, B tier for Kojiro right now. Let's see, where do we put the original Lancelot, who was kind of the meta breaker par excellence, because before he was released, she was released, basically for 1 year the meta didn't move all that much. Yes, we had Water Snow White release in between, Freya was quite kind of good, but in general we had no events for 1 year and we had no really strong meta breaking units for 1 year, and Lancelot changed both of that. She brought back the events to Evertale and she brought back the power creep to Evertale. And look at how far we've come now. She had that instant stun was crazy. She had the deadly momentum, which was sick back then. But nowadays, definitely underpowered. And but we can again see how powerful that deadly momentum can be in somebody like Dark Musashi. But for Dark Musashi, it's just one of 20 passives basically, and Lancelot basically had that as a single passive that was already filling out the whole skill set. And so yeah, Lancelot is going to the E tier. And we have Bright Lancelot, which was yet another Storm variant. The Storm Guard actually pretty good, cannot be used in burn teams successfully. She enters some trance and needs some kills then, which is not that easy to do, but the bigger problem for her was that when she was released, poison was not really doing all that great, but of course we have Dark King Arthur coming out right there, which was a counter because she dies to super poison and mega poison, and of course lethal poison as well. That is basically what is troubling Bright Lancelot nowadays. And yeah, wish there wasn't that crazy power creep. I have to agree. Would be nicer to have a little bit of a more slower pace like we had back then. Then again, you know, 2022 was a bit extreme because there was really no big movement at all in terms of the meta, with the stealth units just staying on top all the time. So maybe that's in hindsight also a bit boring. Then again, it was easier to just, you know, make some guides to say, okay, build this team, and then half a year later it was still relevant because, you know, Earth Misha was still the must for the team, and then having a guard train and stuff like that for newcomers was an easy enough suggestion. Okay, Bright Lancelot. Where's she going? She goes to the D tier. Alright, and then we have none other than Dark Lancelot, who also came out with some very strong, nice get turn mechanic, with the Time Desecrator, with the very lethal, potentially Unleash Hell skill, and also immune against sleep if there are any water teams on the enemy team, so that was also nice in the aftermath of the Tristan release. And as such, Linux is saying B tier for Dark Lancelot. She's actually going even to the A tier. So congratulations to Dark Lancelot. Still staying relevant after all that time. Then we get LeFay. Well, she's a poison unit with a poison skin. You know her maybe from the historic PvP and Shadow League, but all that being said, not much else to be said. She goes to the G tier and fills up our third row here. Then we get to Loki. Loki is low-key bad. Even at her release, honestly, I was trash-talking her. But she was the first unit that had hypnosis, so that was the really good part about her. Everything else was kind of meh. She had the Devil Stance, she had the Mega Poison in her skill sets. I didn't like that she had one passive that was basically just hair having a hold ground for a limited time of time units, so that was probably the worst passive that came out like ever since. There has never been such a bad passive on an SSR unit anymore, so take that as you want. But the good news for the Loki lovers is that she still makes it to the F tier. Then we have none other than Lebu. My goodness, also feels like forever since she came out in June 2024. She was a very nice DPS, actually a way for burn teams to actually get some executes off semi-regularly, let's say, with the Scorched Earth attack. Some very nice entry effect as well, so that is definitely great for burn teams, or was great for burn teams. And even now she's still a second-rate burn unit, so not too bad. But yeah, she goes to the C tier. Linux in chat saying, Loki goddess of mischief trolling by having shit skills. Oh, true that. Well, yeah, but we move on and we get to Lucifer, which is actually a very good unit. A burn unit that wasn't even that high when she came out, because burn was just so deep into the gutter. But with the later releases in March and especially in August, she finally even made it into the SSS tier for a brief moment, which is something as a burn unit. Not easy to achieve at all. And she had that permanent burn passive that really spread burn to everything. And absolutely strong unit. For a very long time. She's over 1 year old at this time, at this point. Now she slowly gets phased out because there's just too many counters to her, and the normal burn isn't even cutting it anymore. But Lucifer, nevertheless, still makes it to the A tier. She is still a very, very decent unit. Interesting. The B tier is still very open for the later letters in the alphabet. The B tier will not be joined by the next few units, that's for sure, because we now go back in time for a bit more again. We have Lucius, who came out in August 2019, and as such, he will be there in the next Shadow League tournament. So keep an eye out for that. Let's see how he does there. He's an overdrive unit with some augment counter, some desperate spirit in his skill set. Spirit armor is there as well. Very, very interesting unit. Then we have Water Ludmilla, who just came out before that in July. With the stealth unit, with the Endless Summer, she was basically unkillable as long as there are 2 stealth units on her team, which was pretty broken at the time. But keep in mind that the time was July 2019 and we had manual PvP. In Arena, it is definitely not broken or was never broken, and it's also never going anywhere at this point in the meta, so it is going to the cheat here. Then we had Light Ludmilla, who was probably or is definitely the highest rated. Well, is a difficult question, but she is. She was at the top of the meta for a long time. Not at the top, but always very usable, given that she was the only 100% guard for a very, very long time. I didn't quite like her in the autoplay at first because she couldn't, you know, strategically pass like we were used to in the manual PvP. But she's still a very, very nice guard. All that being said, unfortunately, she only makes it into the F tier at this point because we have so many better guards, and now a normal hold ground isn't going to cut it anymore to tank. Even more than 1 hit is usually out of reach for her. And then we had a Bloodburn unit in Fire Ludmilla, a very, very interesting one. And she had, I think, the Burn Drain. She had also a way to quickly summon some Moris and do some blood novaing. And as such, she goes to the cheat tier. But then we had Bright Ludmilla, one of the, well, the very first guard release in the Evertale 2.0 era. And she actually definitely stayed on top there for an insanely long time, basically until Light Anya came out and overtook her. Bright Ludmilla was for nearly 2 years at the top of the guard world. You had to have her. She had that undefeatable passive when she gets the Shield of Eldine down. Really, really good stuff from this Bright Ludmilla. And even now, she's still decent. And yeah, because she's decent, she makes it into the accordingly named D tier. But we have, oh my goodness, we have actually 5 more Ludmillas to go. And technically 5.5. That is crazy. But yeah, Earth Ludmilla was a bit of a flop of a New Year's unit. Might be the weakest unit. Or one of the weakest units of 2021. She had the Gift Turn Plus, which interestingly gave another unit the turn twice. But yeah, that's it basically. I mean, she had the Auto Barrier as well, but Anya was still the better unit at that point in time. Yeah, not much that can be said about her. Not much redeemable qualities. She goes to G tier. And then we had Storm Ludmilla, who also had a bit of an unlucky start, given that she was released a few days after Storm Jeanne, in parallel with her. And of course, compared to her, she was nothing. But nowadays, the difference isn't too stark. She goes to the F tier. And then we have Yukata Ludmilla, another Earth Guard. Definitely one of the better guards. Some people thought she would replace Light Anya, but Light Anya turned out to be more durable even after over 1 year. Yes, for some time Yukata Ludmilla made it close between her and Light Anya, but overall the longevity of Light Anya turned to be out superior. And right now she makes it to the B tier, just as Cerberus, who was released at a similar time, but Cerberus of course in between had a much higher rise. Yukata Ludmilla more at the beginning and then a quick drop. After Musashi was released, for example, that was not a good time for Yukata Ludmilla. And then we had Avatar Ludmilla, which was basically the unit that was very, very strong at the height of the Godless meta. Before new Anya was released, Avatar Ludmilla was the staple. Unfortunately, she's only good if you don't run her with any guards, because otherwise she loses her barrier, she loses her stun absorption. So you really don't want to run her anywhere close guards, which is a problem nowadays, but she can still be nice, especially with that kind of sleeping passive on repeat turns. If the enemy is not sleep immune, can be still very, very nice. And as such, she actually also makes it to the B tier, so 2 Ludmillas there. And then we have the Dark Ludmilla, which was a semi-guard, definitely a strong one with the Spirit Steel, the poison skills at the stealth. Her survival skills very good, however very vulnerable to stun, unfortunately. And as such, she is having trouble nowadays, but she is still a very, very good guard. She becomes a guard if she enters and there is no other guard, so you might want to have her in reinforcements or as the only guard in front. She's definitely, yeah, I would still say maybe the strongest poison unit right now in terms of a universal sense, which is a bad sign for poison, of course. But yeah, she goes. And that's maybe one of the more surprising parts today. She goes to the SS tier. Still holding on up there. Alright. And then finally, before we go to Ludmilla Clarice, let me check in the chat what I missed. Yes, music is the Evertale original soundtrack. Anastasia is the best burn unit. Yeah, kind of, I guess. True. That's quite unfortunate to look at it like that, but can't argue. And Umbra also predicted SS tier correctly for Dark Ludmilla, so congrats. Yeah, we are moving on to the Ludmilla and Clarice combo, which was also very good for 2 or 3 months. She had the Deadly Guard passive, so she became a guard when she was when she did get a kill, and so that was very, very nice. Also the Savage, her passives that put units to sleep that are under 25% and stuff like that. It's very, very nice stuff, you know. Especially back then, there was no execute skills. There was a lot of hold ground shenanigans, hold ground plus shenanigans, so she was a good counter to that in some sense. But at this point, unfortunately, this water unit makes it only to the F tier. That means we are done with the L units, so no more L's to be taken today. We are actually progressing at a nice pace, I think. We are not that far anymore. We are basically more than halfway through, I think. And as such, Masamune is next. But first, I need to get something to drink, so I will be back in 20 seconds. One, 2, 3, 21. Umbra is saying I'm back. Nice trap. But yeah, we are back, and we are back with Masamune, who has been pronounced to be dead for quite a long time. I mean, to be fair, Zeus is now there. Chronos is also not that high anymore. Masamune with the Skybreaker, still very nice. Of course, vulnerable to sleep, but overall a very, very good unit, nevertheless, especially in the meta we are in right now. Yes, she has these vulnerabilities, but she makes them worth your time sometimes. And so ultimately, she likes to sleep, yes, indeed. But when she's awake, you better watch out for her. And Masamune, who was in the top plat for some time, now maybe not so much anymore, but still a very strong unit, she makes it to the S S tier. No, just kidding. I mean, it's SS tier, but still very, very good stuff here from Masamune in the meta. Still, according to my data from 2000 top teams, that is. Then we have Maxima and Murdain, some units that are released in the summer of 2019. She is a crisis unit, and of course that means she goes straight to the G tier. And on the other hand, we have Murdain, and that one is a bit surprising to me, but I don't know, maybe for starters he does some good stuff, or people just like his arts enough to put him in a lot of teams on new servers. But yeah, he makes it actually to the F tier. Of course, don't pull for him, don't pull for any of these units down here. But yeah, I mean, I guess people like him somehow. I really don't understand how he can make it to the F tier, but yeah, I have to follow my data, you know. And sometimes there are some anomalies in the data, but yeah, nowadays Merlin definitely an easy skip. But if you get him as an off banner, I'm sure you can use him and have some fun with him as well. Then we go next to none other than Merlin. And Merlin is interesting because she was thought to be maybe a replacement for the Stormbrelosha hype, but somehow she still didn't manage to live up to it, and she only goes into the G tier, which is actually pretty terrible. I mean, yes, we put most of these units in G tier, but for example, I think she's much better than Murdain, to be fair. But, you know, the data is what the data is. Then again, Merlin is obviously not attainable through off-banner. She has the stun entry still, which is nice enough, but nothing else there in the skill set to save her. And not even that apparently is enough now anymore to keep her alive in this meta. And then, and glad we still have Linux in the chat, because we are covering Mermaid next. Jared is actually saying Maxima was my first ever FA unit. Ooh, baby. That's crazy. But was that still during the manual times, right? Because then it was still good, maybe. Linux saying, well, who's that lovely girl my eyes are witnessing? Yes, this is Mermaid. Jared saying Mermaid is S, so A tier, nice. Linux SSS tier, please make it to S, please Drew, Mermaid to S, Mermaid G tier. I'm support always is intercepting with some more realistic expectations here for Mermaid. And yeah, Mermaid, honestly, not too bad. She is immovable, so that is very nice in the current meta. She brings the coral barrier to the battlefield as well. So for some sleep teams, she could do some backline duty, still quite successfully. Not the worst unit for sure, even though she is of the water element. The W doesn't stand for worst or worse in this case. However, is she still making it to the S tiers? Or to the L tier for Linux? Let's check how far she can go. She goes over the C tier, she goes into the B tier, and then she even makes it higher and into the A tier, and then she makes it into... Nah, she just makes it to the A tier, sorry Linux. It is what it is, unfortunately. She can't make it into the S tiers anymore. That time has passed. The executes are a problem for her, the stuns are a problem for her. So yeah, while she isn't bad, she is not S tier great anymore. So that is why it's over for Mermaid indeed. What the hell is happening with the chat? Why is it now showing Excalibur? What the hell? Ah, that's too bad. Now we didn't see the "It's So Over" with the wilted roses from Linux in the chat on the screen, but let me tell you, they are there. And let's move on before we go deeper into the sadness for Linux. Let's see when they are releasing Mermaid 2. I'm actually expecting a few other units to get a second version first. Not so sure if we get another Mermaid, unfortunately. Mirai is up next. She was the very first 2.0 unit, and she was actually a great support back then. With the passive spirit production, actually quite valuable. With the stun revenge, often ignored, so kept alive. Has some spirit production, has some healing on turns for your friends on the team, and so it's a bit surprising, but she is only making it to the G tier. Actually, I would think I would still put her in the F tier. Maybe I need to do subjective ratings for these units down here again. But yeah, it is what it is. Right now, I'm strictly following the data for this version of the tier list, and Mirai doesn't break into the F tier in this one. Does F Mirai though? Fire Mirai? No. Also a Burn Crisis unit. Decent, but released in the middle of the stealth era. Nothing Burn could do at that point. So yeah, while she was okay unit, she was never great. That cannot be said for Mitsuchi, who was a sick finisher with the counter skin and the time drain and the hold ground, which was something to be witnessed back then in the meta. Definitely a bit of a breaker here. Unfortunately, right now that doesn't mean anything anymore, and so she also goes to the G tier. No subjective ratings. Dark Musashi is not there yet, exactly. And we continue on, but we will cover Musashi as well, of course. Oh, wait. Did we already have Musashi? No, Musashi is coming later. Okay, good. I didn't spot him for a second there. But yeah, we will discuss briefly on Dark Musashi as well, even though she's not there. Momoka is up next, and she's an interesting one. She's an emergency guard, and as such, sometimes you could still find her in some interesting team constellation. Pure support, of course. Emergency guard is an interesting mechanic that I would like to see more often. Then again, nowadays maybe too late for that, given the constant healing we see on every unit. But yeah, she goes to the F tier. And then we have Momotaro, guys. And Momotaro is a water unit that I don't need to introduce at this point, probably. She single-handedly made it so that only immovable units are really viable in the meta. And I think without Momotaro, Anastasia would be SSS tier, for example. But given we have now even a Dark Musashi release, don't see that happening too soon. Then again, well, actually Dark Musashi release might boost Anastasia, but we are getting off track here. Momotaro, of course, is an insane unit. Damage output is also great, even if she cannot produce any imposters. Of course, if she can, then she sows absolute chaos in the enemy team. Absolutely breaking it apart. Great unit for starters. Great unit for one copy as well. I have her in my team at one copy, and she's doing great work there. So low investment, high reward for this Momotaro, who goes to none other than the SSS tier. Nice to say that after, I think, probably like 1.5 hours where we didn't get any SSS tiers, so that is very nice. I mean, it is a very exclusive tier. Let's see if anyone else can make it up there from the remaining crowd. Yeah, that was Momotaro. Let's see, Lennox is raising an interesting point. Maybe Dark Musashi will push down Momotaro from the SSS tier, but let's see. Jared actually saying Momo is the worst unit released for the meta. Oof. Let's see where we go from here, but right now we see Mordred go to the C tier. Yes. What can we say about her? Maybe Jared in chat can say a few things. But yeah, she goes there. Yeah, in the C tier. Yeah, actually very nice unit with the hold count plus, with the team support, kind of the the royal gift turn to all the burning units and stuff like that. Was a very good unit, even though she doesn't have an execute skill, which was already getting rare at that point. But yeah, definitely. And the Royal Crimson Sting could give a huge damage output to all enemies, so that was pretty good. But yeah, nowadays, as Jared is writing in the chat, not really usable anymore in any of the top burn teams, so that is why she is C tier. Murasaki goated E tier, Linok is saying. Murasaki, of course, was a very nice guard, also with lower investment early on. Basically, a problem for her is that she needs to get some enemy or someone needs to be killed first on her team to unlock that. Unless she is in the front, and in the front she can no longer be because she is not immovable. That is a problem for her, but other than that, I mean, she has the auto barrier, she has a lot of good stuff, and so if you don't run her into a Momotaro, she could actually still do some decent stuff for you and be very hard to kill because of her mechanic that basically makes it so that if she gets killed and she can be truly executed, she might still get revived. So that is a very nice part here of Murasaki's skill set, and she goes to the B tier. And now we are at Musashi, guys. And yeah, Water Musashi definitely pushed back hard by the Storm King Arthur release. Then again, you know, she was still immovable. She had the guard pushback, which can be nice against non-immovable guards. And once she gets killing, and with the help of some imposters, for example, could still be a nice unit sometimes. Definitely on the edge of if you should still pull for her. I wouldn't pull for her personally, but considering she's such an old unit, she's holding up not too bad, especially considering that she was countered just a few weeks after her release by Storm King Arthur. And so yeah. Where does she go? Actually quite high, surprisingly. She goes to the B tier, so Musashi in the B tier. Then again, we have a new Dark Musashi on the block, and this Musashi is having some similarities to this old Musashi, but is just upgraded. The only thing is that at some point she becomes harder to stay alive, but at that point she might already have killed the whole enemy team. Dark Musashi, especially for Wales, I think is an absolute must-have unit. For free to place also. Then again, if you don't fully awaken her and push a lot of resources into her, I think it's a waste actually, so don't pull unless you have at least, I don't know, 80k of soulstones, I think. Then again, of course, you could get lucky, but keep in mind, you should have enough soulstones to fully awaken her, and you should have enough resources to level her to a sufficient degree. That is, I don't know, 60% potential, let's say 200 boosts, some nice mastery. So yeah, then Dark Musashi can probably shine, and yeah, maybe the chat can share some tier predictions for Musashi. We don't have any data on Dark Musashi yet. As for my current feeling, it's SSS tier, but the thing is, I'm still concerned about what the new releases will do to her potentially. So I'm not sure if at the next tier list that we're gonna make, she's actually going to SSS tier, or if she's already countered at that point. So that's the big question, but right now, yeah, Jared Rexy even saying SSS S tier, which is fair. Very strong unit. Definitely considering to make her my first fully awakened unit since Chronos. So yeah, let's see how that goes. And from Dark Musashi we go to Earth Misha, who also gets a new release in this event. So that will be very interesting, because Earth Misha was probably the longest dominator of all time. Yes, she wasn't quite number one for some time because of the methodology of my True Power mostly back then, but she was basically a must-have in any Platoon 1 for over a year after her release. Actually, arguably until 1.5 years into her release, because back then, you know, Storm Jeanne came out and Storm Lancelot, but Misha was still a nice counter to them, to a degree at least, you know, as much as you could talk about having a counter, Earth Misha was there. And yeah, actually, I'm glad to see that she still makes it to the F tier. Her Stealthy Vengeance, of course, was the big thing that she had. Yeah, that is very good. We will see Okita copying some of her skills at later on, but of course that was many years later and after the stealth era has passed. Then we had Light Misha, which was interesting because she had this kind of full heal, even that she can repeat with the spirit heart basically, and with the Vigor Launcher actually, that had potential to banish some units even, but she goes to the G tier. And the same is true for Infernal Misha. She was also one of the underwhelming releases during that time period that didn't bring back Burn. Yeah, just think back to somebody like Fire Antares, who came out at a similar time. We had Fire Misha there as well. And she's actually arguably even worse. She usually, you know, she has some passive that makes it so that she gets the turn when she would die, but then she dies definitely. So sometimes she would just do some ignition, which produces some spirit and then just dies, which is not ideal because then she just dies by herself. So arguably it might not even be better than a hold ground. So yeah, Infernal Misha definitely down there. And that was our final M unit. So we are done with M's. And Linux already predicting that I'm gonna pull for her 10 minutes before the end of her banner. Yeah, actually I'm a bit concerned about that already, because on Thursday there will be the new release, and then, you know, based on the new release I will make the final decision to fully awaken Dark Musashi or not. But then I also have to make the review video, of course. So let's see how that goes. Nagi, our goat, deserves SSS tier. Wow. Let's see where that one goes. Let me check. Yeah, I have it here in my notes. Yes, he is an off-banner unit. Yes, he was one of the OG units. Definitely nice to have his savage skills, so kind of a frenzy force that he gets sometimes in the historic PvP tournaments. And all things considered, he definitely has to make it into the God tier, which is G. Yeah, GG to Nagi in the chat. But yeah, he is not there. I mean, apparently, according to the chat, maybe I look a little bit like him, despite never having done a face reveal. But yeah, that's definitely very froggy face there. Let's continue though with more N units that might go higher than her. Then again, it's actually not that many N units if you think about it. We only have 4 more, and most of them are pretty old. True, look at his eyes. The determination is undoubtedly, the risk in his eyes is infinity. Wow. Nagi sure appreciates that. The 4 N's are bad. Yeah, let's quickly cover them though. We have Napoleon, who had the first Execute All skill, guys. The Revolution. The Revolutionary Execute All skill that unfortunately dealt very little damage, but of course it could execute everyone, so that was still very revolutionary. As such, she actually makes it to the D tier. And then we have Nike or whatever. Seems like Sigza favors Adidas, because this Nike was quite underwhelming. She broke the game a little bit, then everybody got refunded who pulled her in the first 24 hours or so. But the good thing for those who were sad about not having pulled her and getting her for free is that she's actually a really bad unit. Maybe the worst, one of the worst in 2025. Then again, you know, sometimes she can pull off some crazy stuff in the end. We saw that in tournaments, but of course, in the open world, not that much that she can do at this point. She is not sleep immune. She has a declare victory skill, which is very specific because she even needs to get a kill before she can do it. But yeah, I mean, some people can still use her to some good effect. She's not absolute trash at this point. And so she goes to the B tier. So congratulations to Nika, the goddess of victory. Certainly underwhelming in that regard. Rarely causing the victory. Free unit is a free unit. That's true though. Yeah. And yeah, next up, Nobunaga. Nobunaga is actually an interesting case because she could enable Anastasia, as we saw in a great team built, I think, by Ultros in the Carrot Cup. That was pretty slick to ensure that Anastasia gets the first turn. Nobunaga, of course, super speedy unit. But other than that, unfortunately, she cannot do much anymore. She is not gonna be there unless she activates something for Anastasia. Other than that, not that much she can do, even with the Crimson Ward and stuff like that. Unfortunately, she only makes it into the F tier. But yeah, from the F tier, probably the most usability in the meta, I have to say, because she could enable these kinds of wild builds to ensure Anastasia's first turn. And then we get to Norza, which was an top tier unit back then when I started playing. It was just released. Survivor's Fury, Storm HP revival, basically. The counter stands, well, he cannot get killed, during which he has that and stuff like that. Yeah, really great unit. Not that great in the auto arena, and of course not that great given that he's over 6 years old at this point. So yeah, he goes, unfortunately, to the graveyard tier as yet another male down. Actually, the only male unit... Oh well, two. Yeah, we have Finn and Merdane, who hold up the male pride, basically, in this tier list. Then again, you know, units like Odin, maybe we can technically count them as males as well. Odin, of course, is a unit that was really good. Probably the moment that she was nerfed, or basically out of the meta, was when Cthulhu was released and killed all the birds easily. Before that, it was actually pretty hard to get rid of her sometimes. The birds were very annoying, spirit stealing. She had the really extreme supreme stun, which was 500 time units. So that is pretty insane stuff. And yeah, actually some very nice survival mechanic with these birds. Kind of creative stuff here from Sigza for Odin, but definitely game breaking in some cases, where the birds, or where she single-handedly won the battle by the birds getting more and more. So yeah, Odin goes to the E tier. Yeah, this storm unit is there, and then we have Okita, also a fan favorite of some of the chat, maybe not Sume, for example. Okita is okay, I guess. Unfortunately, still one of the worst units released in 2024. She has the Stealthy Vengeance for her whole team, so it's a huge upgrade over Earth Misha. But nevertheless, one of her skills is super hard to actually pull off. Her executing is not quite there. She has a Stealth Avalanche skill that is okay, but yeah, there's just not that much to be swooning about, I guess, in this skill set. And yeah, as such, she goes to the E tier. Despite not being all that old, she's actually... so Odin was released 10-11, 23, and Okita was released 11-10, 24, so a good 11 months between them, but now they find themselves in the same tier. Then we go on to Orzakon. And Orzakon is a great entry, has some high stun effects, is an off-banner. And as such, he's actually usable-ish if you get him as an off-banner. So he goes to the F tier. Then we have Ossia, who was also a long time a great pseudo-guard. And she was the very first Hold Ground Plus unit, guys. So that was insane back then. Huge excitement, or, well, the end is near, or end of service close, because, wow, a Hold Ground Plus unit is released, 1.5 years after Evertale's start. But, yeah, of course, nowadays, this is nothing that shocks us anymore, and unfortunately, given that we have all these executes, she cannot pull off that pseudo guard chop even anymore with the flip stun random, which was nice, and she goes to the G tier and closes the fourth row already, and yeah, so at this point we already have 56 units in the G tier. And we are getting closer and closer, guys, to the finish, which is nice. We have a few more Ossias lined up. One of them is Dark Ossia. She was a bit meh, but still okay. She had a lot of ways to heal, which was nice. She had the poison healing and the blood healing and all that kind of effects when she got hit, and getting HP back when that happens, and, you know, some interesting stuff there. But nevertheless, unfortunately, a bit of a problem also in terms of auto-poisoning on her skill set, like we saw in Earth Astrid, but the problem was, a few weeks, not quite, but if you run her against somebody like, Dark Sun Wukong, Dark Sun Wukong was able to multiply quickly even before the Unicorn release. So yeah, she goes to the G tier. And then we have Earth Ossia, who was very unlucky, I have to say. I kind of liked her to be a potential counter against the Storm Domination back then, but then they directly released Commander Astrid a few weeks later and nerfed her directly, basically, with that, which was unfortunate because Ossia was a decent pick here with her high speed and the counter to kick things off. Some interesting mechanic there with her attack 2 skills in combination, and her ways to heal back up and stuff like that. Yeah, an interesting stealth poison unit, but unfortunately she only makes it into the F tier at this point. And then we have Otohihime. Let's see if she has anything to laugh about. She is a very, very nice entry unit for sleep. She has that potential executes on some of her attacks, but not that many. Not actually that convincing anymore, and even back then in the meta I wasn't that convinced by her skill set. But she still makes it into the E tier, still some good stuff from her, still usable for a sleep team. Also, the Fully Awakened art I think is kind of nice. It reminds me of some kind of anime or some music video or something. So that is nice. And then we have Umai. Umai is actually, we might need to have an Umai tier for Umai. She is going to the G tier. She was kind of the personification of a bad unit, even in 2019 when she was released. Really, really not that great skill set. Basically a poison SR unit at most. So yeah, not that much to write home about here for Umai, but yeah, she's the final O unit we have, and that means we are moving on to P next, guys. So yeah, maybe that's a good chance to have a P break if you have to go, but actually we can continue because we're already 2.5 hours deep and we don't want to sit here all day, right? We want to find out where the top units land and all the other ones as well, of course. Let's see. People still use Otohime in 5th for wars though. Well, yep, that's why she's maybe still not in the worst tiers, but I don't think she's in any top platoons at this point. Then we have Percival, and Percival was this kind of crazy light unit with an execute skill, the Void, that was very nice. With the Blast Wave, that was really great, especially in combination with Percival, with original Dark Cleopatra. That combo was the ultimate meta back then. I had both of them at one copy and doing some crazy stuff against stronger teams. So yeah, that was good times for Percival, and with Percival, she also doesn't die to poison, which is nice, and doesn't die to burn. But ultimately, of course, her time has passed at this point. She still makes it to the D tier though, so that is not too bad. And then finally we get another strong unit after some time. And this is Perry. Perry, of course, this water sleep unit with the barrage, with some deep sleep granting. Of course, she's struggling a bit against new Anya. Still a very good setup, especially together with somebody like Anastasia because of Perry's high speed. Definitely a must in any sleep team, and maybe even a good pickup for any Frostburn team. Still a very, very strong unit, and as such, she goes to the SS tier. Congratulations to Perry. And then we have Pinocchio. Pinocchio definitely a dark horse a little bit at this point, because he can, when the RNG hits right and he gets the turns and stuff like that, she, of course, then she can do some crazy stuff. We saw that in the Platoon Wars 3, where Abdo's top platoon killer was basically a Pinocchio Blood. That was absolutely crazy, taking out a lot of meta units. And yeah, just unfortunately pretty weak against Burn, and also against some other forms of the meta that come up now. Still very, very strong. It is a poison unit after all, and as such, at this point in time, absolutely impossible for her to go into the top tier anyways. And so it's actually a pretty good performance to still stay in the S tier, despite being released in August. Also at an unlucky time, because that was right around after Claire's release and Zhuge Liang's release. Both of them burn units, both of them countering Pinocchio to a degree. So definitely a little bit unlucky there as well. But yeah, he can still, as Ming said in the chat, one-shot certain units there. Especially, you know, these storm units that are somewhat vulnerable to lethal poison still. Alright, then we go next to Rapunzel. Actually, already to the R units. We actually have a lot of R units. Oh my goodness. Jesus. Oh my goodness. Guys. I just realized how many R units we have. I mean, P was pretty quickly right now. But R. R starts here with Rapunzel. Goes here, 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 here. We continue here in the second row. It's still not stopping. We go all over the resets. We go over the Reloshas. We go to Ryomas. And then, only with Ryoma it ends. Sakura is there. That's insane. That's a lot of R units, guys. Okay, so get ready, get buckled in, and let's try to cover them rather quickly. So, rapid fire, guys. Rajana. Oh, wait, not Rajana, sorry. We start with Rapunzel, of course. Let's see how many of them can make it far, these R units. Linux already in chat saying all R units but Viris and Ryoma are bad. Let's see. Hold up, my goat is there. Viris. Yes, Viris will come now. Finally we get to cover the new units. And first though, we have to go to Rapunzel. Rapunzel actually an interesting sleep unit, although more of an after sleep unit with an execute skill for that. That is kind of nice. Of course, she's also a supporter with purification, golden purify there, the golden bolts and stuff like that. All some good stuff actually. And surprisingly, or a little surprisingly, to me at least, she still makes it to the D tier. Well, actually, now that I see who is there, it's not that surprising anymore. Alright, we continue with none other than Rashana. And Rashana is a dragon that has some very nice Mori entry, depending on the number of burning units on the field. Definitely someone to watch out for in the current Shadow Leagues and historic PvP tournaments. But as for the current arena meta, that is clearly G tier. Water Ray is a bit of an off-banner unit, but has a sleep entry, and that makes her still useful sometimes a little bit. It's sleeping the lowest time unit enemy, if it's not a sleep immune enemy, of course, and if it hasn't slept before, because of course she doesn't have forced sleep, but still a decent unit. Earth Ray actually was a very interesting unit as well when she was released with her Shikigami. Basically, she made it so that a lot of these entry effects units like Storm Rolosha, right below her, could be repeatedly doing their stuff, which was very, very strong, but it's no longer strong, so Earth Ray is down. Actually, Earth Ray might be one of the very last SSRs that doesn't have any kind of healing in her skill set, so that is also interesting. Then again, her Shikigamis were mostly targeted back then, so she could still stay alive for quite a while. Then we have Fire Ray, also someone who was released in the 2022 era of Sixer in the spring, briefly trying to revive Burn, but that was unsuccessful. So yeah, she goes to the G tier at this point, not really someone to put... Oh, actually... Yeah, no, it's not someone who to put anywhere anymore. Sorry, I was thinking, oh, maybe I did a mistake, but... no, she's just a fire element, but still the G tier Fire Ray, not doing all that much anymore at this point. And then we go to the two Rainas next. Excalibur being your goat is crazy, not gonna lie. I have to agree. Alright, we go on to Raina, the Earth Raina. There are some fans of her art style, the kind of nurse style that she has going for her. Unfortunately, her skill set was truly bad. Like, not gonna lie, she sometimes sacrificed your best units. Really don't want her on your team. She was the first unit that actually had Mega Poison in her skill set with a Mega Poison Revenge. But yeah, this just... Ugh, terrible, terrible unit. I was surprised that anyone picked her up. She was basically a budget Dark Reset, but Dark Reset was better in pretty much any way. Yeah, she had that kind of tribute thing going on, where she deleted one of your top runners, or maybe gave them Grunt Stun Absorb, so then they absorbed the stuns and couldn't act, so really terrible units. The good thing is Dark Raina was much better. She was basically the predecessor of Dark Sun Wukong, one could say. She has the Deadly Doppelganger skill. Whenever she kills a unit, she could use that and multiply. Of course, it was not that easy to do, but she was still one of the better releases of 2022. And as such, she makes it still only into the G tier, so still graveyard tier, unfortunately. Not usable anymore, despite a nice entry effect. Then we have Rin, who had the Hold Ground Plus Poison unit, also a release in 2022, also a release that isn't that memorable anymore, never was that great. And now we are arriving at the resets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 resets on the menu. Obviously some elements repeated there, but let's quickly cover them, how it's gonna go. We have Water Reset, who is a Sleep Guardbreaker unit, is also available in the off banner, is going to the G tier now. Then we have Dark Reset. Dark Reset, as I mentioned before previously in some points, she was actually great for a very, very long time, maybe even longer than Earth Musha, if you include the manual PvP era. Absolutely strong unit, released for Halloween 2019. And I also quite enjoy her art style, like especially her second form and her skill animations. Really a lot to like about this Dark Reset. Unfortunately, not a lot to like in today's meta. She still makes it only to the graveyard tier, unfortunately. But I am very much looking forward to seeing her in the Shadow League and the historic PvP tournament soon. Then we have Fire Reset, who had some Ignition Dance. She was basically the Chinese New Year reset, so Chinese New Year coming soon as well. That is something to watch out for. Maybe we get a Chinese New Year's unit sometime again. I wasn't a huge fan of her art, also not of her skill set so much. Then again, it was mostly geared towards burn teams. and she also makes it to the G tier. The same, unfortunately, is true for Light Reset, not Valkyrie Reset, to be exact. Interesting unit though, with stuns that she dishes out when she uses active skills. She actually was buffed by Sixer at some point because it was too easy to just ignore her and not do anything. So she got the Survivor's Power into her passives, but yeah, nonetheless, not gonna be anything but G tier right now. Then we had Earth Reset, or Earth Endless Reset. She was supposed to bring back poison, but she just brought some Christmas present and some not so great skill set. Her time units were way too long, even at the release. I was really disappointed because I was really looking forward to a very strong poison unit back then for my team. So yeah, kind of reminiscent of now maybe. So let's see if we have more luck this time getting a strong poison unit. Although nowadays I'm no longer waiting for that because I'm running hybrid anyways. So I just run meta as good as I can most of the time. Then we have a Storm Reset, who caused a bit of an outrage in May 2021 because of her images. Supposedly she's, you know, the old Reset in a young body and stuff like that, but still questionable choice here, and some people quit the game actually after the Fully Awakened art was revealed for her. So I think Sixer definitely learned a lesson there. And yeah, she goes to G tier as well as all the other resets so far. Then we have Bunny Reset. She was the very first unit that had Forced Sleep, and she also had Chain Sleep in her skill set. Some good stuff there. Definitely the beginning of an era for the Forced Sleep, but yeah, no longer valuable enough to use at all. So that is G tier for Bunny Reset. And then we have Angel Reset, yet another Dark Reset version. Also a unit that I had high hopes for, but that was now in 2023, keep in mind, so 2.5 years after that Earth Reset fiasco. We had Angel Reset, and again, unfortunately, she was underwhelming. After Commander Astrid, I was really thinking, okay, they are reviving the metas with the respective banner units, basically Astrid bringing back Burn and then Reset bringing back Poison, but that was not the case. Unfortunately, her skill set was rather lacking, and I'm still a bit sad that they didn't, you know, use that kind of Jeanne mechanic that they used on Angel Jeanne later on this Endless Reset, because I feel like this could have been a very good fit for her, you know, that kind of pushing back instead of dying 2 skills. Seems like it would be accurate instead of having 1 Revenge Endless Reset coming back. Yeah, I just don't really understand why they did it that way. But yeah, she still makes it to the F tier, so congratulations for that. And then we go to the Bright Reset, which was the next Cerulean Bright Reset, because, you know, Bunny Reset was already taken, and so it's Chris for short. But yeah, she's actually the second unit of the Earth element for resets. She's the only one that ever had this kind of toxic sleep. Interesting mechanic. Unfortunately, now it's probably too late to bring it back in a truly meta fashion. But yeah, actually I forgot where I want to put her. She's going to the E tier. So E tier now also opening up a second row here. Congrats to the E tier. Oh my goodness, I'm already talking for so long, but finally, guys, we are getting to a new unit, which are interestingly all towards the end of the alphabet. If you see a look at it here, we are already down to 2.5 rows, and we are nearly done. And now we get the first of the 3 new units, which is interesting. Let me quickly check up on the chat here. GF, GGGG, FFD, SSS is the prediction for Linux. Okay, pretty close stuff there. Ming is also saying Virus will be with Storm Anya in SSS tier. Running the true meta, yeah, true. I picked her up, so she has to go to SSS tier, right? Motor Reset is the coolest unit. Oh, the bicycle, motor bicycle reset, Angel Reset, I guess. SSS for sure, maybe SS if not enough people pulled her. Alright, then let's no longer wait and reveal where Valkyrie Reset goes, guys. Valkyrie Reset, of course, is an execute unit. Her attacks all execute. She has the highest attack stat in the game. Huge buff for her, just 1 or 2 days after her release. Also very nice, of course, with the link and all that kind of good stuff, helping someone out there. But the insane stuff is really her getting that huge attack. Definitely an insane executor after some time. And also with the gift turns and especially the very, very nice purification that she has with all the wards and also removing Mega Healing Burn and Mega Lethal Poison and Deep Sleep and all that good stuff, making wards for your team against certain things. Just an overall well-rounded, insanely good unit. And yeah, that still doesn't mean, of course, that she goes to the SSS tier, because maybe not that many people pulled for her. I mean, she came out just after Zeus, just before Venus. And so ultimately, I have to say that she lands in the SSS tier. Yeah, of course, she goes to SSS tier. She's insane. If you don't know why she's going to SSS tier, I really recommend to watch Platoon Wars 3. She was pretty much MVP for most of these matches. Insane value on Valkyrie Reset. Of course, it needs to be seen how the Dark Musashi release affects her potentially, because of course Dark Musashi might be one to take her out. Then again, she also comes with the instant death wards, so even Dark Musashi is struggling a bit to take her out very, very quickly. And as such, Valkyrie Reset, yes, still slightly below Anya, but she got very close, let's put it like that, to get that #1 position. Let's see when we have the next True SSR World Ranking where these respective units are landing. But yeah, she is our SSS tier unit. And now we move on to clearly G tier, Umbra is saying, to Relosha. We have quite a few of them. Some were disappointing, some were great. And the first one is Earth Relosha. And this one goes to the G tier. She has some gift turn, she has some payback strike, but yeah, other than that, not all that exciting. The exciting thing came when we got Storm Relosha. She was really a meta-defining unit. Everybody used her for that quicken on Dawn on her units. Unfortunately, in Auto Arena that doesn't work any longer, but she was still a great unit at 1 copy in the arena for a very long time, with her stun entry, with the step back, with the abuse, for example, together with Earth Ray. Just an overall classic great unit. And she goes to the F tier now. Still some usability if you have her, of course, but yeah, just even though it hurts me to say this, don't pull for her anymore. Then we have Water Relosha, who was a summer unit with a sleep skin, the only ever unit with a sleep skin. Unfortunately, it's not a forced sleep skin, and unfortunately forced sleep wasn't a thing back then, so actually units or players could abuse that in manual PvP by attacking her right before another purifier of them gets the turn and basically making your units sleep immune, because forced sleep wasn't a thing back then. So Water Relosha, a bit of an underwhelming release. She was still nice in the auto era at the beginning, because she could just do vigor impacts all the time and was ignored mostly in auto, so she could deal some decent damage. But yeah, Relosha unfortunately doesn't make it outside of the G tier. And then we got Giga Relosha, which was basically the upgrade of Storm Relosha. Still a bit sad about how it was handled. Savage Stackback, of course, is nice, but that means she needs to get kills. And the Giga Time Strike, I felt, was a bit weak back then when it was released. Ignoring too little stuff. What was really nice was her passive purification of her team that was happening. You know, kind of the time distortion that was going on. The entry was good. Her speed was abysmal, of course, with 1 speed, the slowest unit in the entire game. Not great. That part, at least, is not great. But what is okay, great, is her rate. She is still in the E tier. So still usable. Although I would not recommend pulling for her. cheat here containing half the game. Yes, I kind of decided, you know, we have 200 SSRs and a lot of them have to go to the cheat here because they are just no longer relevant in the meta. I mean, even a few teams of these 2000 top teams are still using her. Them, I think it's not enough to warrant getting any other consideration than the cheat here. So the cheat here is gonna be stacked. And on that note, let's go to the final Relosha, the Earth Dark Relosha. She was called Dark Relosha, but maybe we can still get another Dark Relosha. This one a little bit disappointing. I was hoping she might be the answer to the Storm meta that was developing back then, you know, especially with the Chronos release. But that was not the case. That was saved for Pinocchio, I suppose. She can still be nice in certain ways, in certain tournament plays, for example, but just not a top meta unit. Definitely one of the disappointments of the year, especially because she can only get the guard when she enters, and that is a bit of meh. So you cannot use her in front, and yeah, all that kind of stuff. All that being said, I mean, she's still good, don't get me wrong, she is a 2025 unit, and as such, much more viable than a lot of other units you see on this list, and as such, she actually makes it all the way up here to the B tier. However, if you look at it, yeah, Nika is there as well, but other than that, all these other units are much older than her in the B tier. Then we get to Ryoma. So we are nearly done with the R's, guys. Now with the double Ryoma, although, I mean, they are written differently or spelled differently. So yeah, that is why Ryoma is coming first. Although, I think shouldn't go first, actually. Huh. I think my preparations were misguided here. I think I put just Ryoma and then put the next Ryoma, but this one is actually first in the alphabet. They don't have the same name, so they get treated differently. And so we will go with Ryoma first. Somebody who is called the GOAT by Linux, I guess. He's saying Ryoma to SS. Let's see if he's right. Ryoma, of course, is a strong unit, has some very nice stuff there. Is struggling, unfortunately, against Storm Anya, which was always a concern, considering that she's an Earth unit. That should be something she could deal with, but ultimately couldn't quite deal with so well. She has the Autumn's End, which is very nice, if she can pull it off. Unfortunately, she's also movable before she uses the Autumn's End, so also not the best for the current meta in that sense. And as such, even though she brings a lot to the table, she has to get comfortable in the S tier right next to Pinocchio. And of course, yeah, also struggling against Burn. Nice, so now we only have 2 rows left here, and then we know how everybody is tiered. The G tier is already pretty stacked. We also have a lot in the F and E tier, and then we have at the top, at the moment, New Anya, Valkyrie Reset, and Momotaro. And let's see where the rest of them goes. First we have the other Ryoma, but that one spelled with a U. Let's see how he does. I mean, he was basically, well, before Theo, he was the last male release. He was a sleep unit that was okay, but okay from 2020 isn't gonna cut it in today's meta, so he goes straight to the G tier. And that means we are done with the R's. Whoever said Ryoma is better than Virus, now watch it. What the hell? Who said that? Alright, let's go. Let's move on. We have Sakura up next. There are also some fans for her art. She's an idol, of course. She's kind of an overdrive unit. The first overdrive unit that had some condition where she can already use overdrive at 6 spirit or more instead of 7 or more. And she also had the Enrage for herself. She had the 600% overdrive, so the damage output could be pretty big. Unfortunately, it's just not enough for today's meta. Cheat here for Sakura. But now we get to Satan next, who has the Master's Missile, which might be an interesting stuff in the current Momotaro meta. Then again, of course, burn is being pushed back, and there are stronger burn units than Satan right now. But what does it mean for Satan? Where does she go? She's still a very decent unit, especially as soon as she gets the kills, which might be through the mass dismissal. Then she can be a truly strong unit. But most of the time she doesn't quite get to pull that off, and so she gets into the middle here between Avatar Ludmilla and Yukata Ludmilla into the B tier despite being a younger unit. Then we have Saya, one of the first vessels released right next to Hibiki, basically the burn overdrive unit compared to that burn crisis unit. She was really, really great at the very, very beginning of Evertale 2.0 when nobody had any resources or not that many resources, and then she could just wipe the floor with her attack all over drain skill. So that was really, really good. Satan with Elmina, have you seen it before? True, I hope, well, yeah, I think I have seen it before, but I really don't like it. I mean, sacrificing imposters on your team or something is one thing, but sacrificing Elminas, oh yeah, not worth it, I think. And Ahozan Habib, welcome. Glad you watched the previous tournament. Then a lot of these tiers will not come as a surprise to you. But yeah, Saya. What else is there to say? I already said everything, I think, and my voice is already starting to crack, so let's speed things up. She goes straight to the Chi tier, and then following is Shanna, and Shanna is a burn unit that is also absolutely terrible. At her release, maybe the worst unit from 2021, in my personal opinion, but yeah, really terrible stuff. She had the Desperate Armor, which is absolutely bad mechanic because, you know, she gets more armor the lower her HP go, which, okay, at first it sounds like, oh yeah, okay, that's reasonable, but if you're already at, I don't know, 10% of HP, then it doesn't help you that much anymore that you get, I don't know, over 50% armor, because then you might die anyways to some low attacks. And yeah, also some pain in her skill set that is not good, so she loses HPs herself. Just really, really bad. Yeah, I really, really disliked it already. Disliked her when she was released, and yeah, the data quickly backed me up on that, I think, as well. And now we move on to Shenlong, yet another burn units. Wow, burn units really like to have S as a starting letter, it seems. Or maybe we just have an interesting run here. But yeah, Shenlong has been out schon lange in German. Has been out for a while, although not quite a year yet. But she is pretty good. Yeah, Linux, absolutely. The SR1 Shana is actually good. That's the SSR1 is probably worse than that, in my opinion. So I don't expect her to go anywhere in historic PvP, even if we even get to that point where we have Shana there. Let's see, let's move on to Shenlong, and glad to read, Ahosan, that you learned a lot from my videos. Shenlong has a nice entry effect, or is a good entry burn unit, but burn is not doing that great. And she has a similar conundrum than Satan, and she makes it only to the B tier at this point anymore, which is unfortunate. Her art is also quite nice, I think. But yeah, that is not an art tier list. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but yeah. Just a reminder on that. Then we have Shiori, actually a nice release, kind of a stun overdrive unit, stun overdrive savage unit, released back then. Unfortunately, no real stunning ability by herself, even though she has a double time strike. She was decent, but not anywhere near to Norsa's level, and now she goes to the Chi tier. Shuten Daoji is a poison blood unit. Somewhere a little bit excited about her at first, but oh, and she also has the stealth part of her skill set with stealth call. She could be okay, but at this point she's far from okay, and she goes to the Chi tier. Shira is up next. Actually, I should have... Well, okay, that was a bad order, but yeah, Shira is should have been before, but she also goes to the Chi tier. She has the poison too. She is one of the OG units, of course, but even as an off-banner, there's no way you can still use her well at this point. I mean, she has the Spirit minus Revenge, so maybe sometimes that one could still trigger. I don't expect her to get many turns or any turns. And the AI is also terrible on her, so that is a part of the reason why she also isn't that great, unfortunately. Then we get Siegfried. Oh, okay, now it gets spicy again. We get some good unit in between. And that means we are already at the 179th unit, so we're really getting closer to the end, which is great. Glad you are still here with me live. Or if you're watching this later, let's see where Siegfried is getting placed. Siegfried, of course, the second Frostburn unit, a bit of a Frostburn Kuchiro style unit. Definitely insane if she pulls off the snowstorm successfully and executes the whole enemy team. Sometimes a bit underwhelming though. The problem is also her non-immunity to stun or no get turn mechanic, so if she gets highly stunned, she really relies on her team to get back into the game. But yeah, a lot of things going her way, especially once she gets 1 or 2 kills, once she gets the Icy Awakenings in, then it's party time for Siegfried, and she will be extremely strong. One thing to point out, also her Frostburn passive, basically what we had with Earth Kaguya for the Cursed Sleep, Siegfried brings for the Frostburn, and Frostburn obviously at this point much stronger than Cursed Sleep, and so that kind of passive that always secures that one enemy is Frostburned is actually extremely great mechanic, and I think it's one of the main reasons even why she makes it into the SS tier. So yeah, Siegfried I think deserves to go there. And now we move on to Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty, of course, the first unit that introduced Thorns. Everybody was thinking, oh, the Thorns are too powerful in the boss skill set, but then they brought it just like that. And honestly, except for Burn, nothing could be done for Sleeping Beauty against Sleeping Beauty for a long time. She was absolutely insane countering stealth or anything really with her Sleep Thorns. Herself being a very strong unit, herself having a lot of damage output. The Dream Devourer also extremely great because it also drained the spirit of opponents. Yeah, just overall a really good unit back then, and somehow she's still not completely irrelevant. She still makes it to the E tier. And then we have Water Sleeping Beauty, which was the follow-up, which was much more niche, unfortunately, and a bit underwhelming. She could still be nice, but then again, you also had to really build around her and make sure that she doesn't hurt your team more than she helps. The AI is also not that great, but nevertheless, she was released over 1 year later, but she also still makes it into the E tier. It's late now, Drew. I'm going to sleep now. Good night, everyone. Good night, Ming. Glad to have you stay around. And yeah, you can still catch up later once it's done tomorrow. All right, and then we got Snow White. Also, it has been quite a while since we got Snow Whites. Oh, well, actually, yeah, not that long ago. But yeah, Snow White, the first one, Dark Snow White, was absolutely insane when she was released, taking over the meta in the time of the first Storm Anya. With her Blood Assassin that she could set herself up to very quickly because of the Dawn passive that she had. As such, she was really powerful, but of course that doesn't say much for today's meta. Certainly not running her in the Dawn anymore, and later on it's a bit bad, even though she has the Purify Call as well, which is a nice skill. But yeah, overall she goes to the Chi tier. And then we had Water Snow White, possibly before Lancelot was released, the very best unit released in 2022. She actually makes it to the F tier. She's a stealth sleep unit. She had the Deadly Sleep, which was very nice. She was also a very strong starting unit. She had the counter skin. She has no hold ground or anything like that, but the counter skin with the healing stealth was already pretty crazy back then. And of course, her stealth attack was pretty powerful and potent as well, as is the Frozen Dreams, which was the super strong anti-sleep attack. Then we got Light Snow White, actually so far still the only unit that switches elements back and forth between light and dark. This Bright Snow White was really, really good as an entry unit especially. But at this point, yeah, not that usable anymore. She also goes to the F tier. And then we got Storm Snow White 1.5 years later. And some people thought she might be broken, but it turned out very quickly that she isn't. Still nice with that kind of stun skin and stuff that she brings to the table. But the problem is, of course, her survivability. Yeah, not quite fitting into the meta. I mean, once she unlocks the Survivor's Crash, it's very nice. But yeah, the Deadly Magic, the Poison Apple, it's a wild mix, and it didn't quite work, I would say. Despite her being immovable, you don't really see her at the top of the meta anymore, and she goes to the C tier. Nice. Okay, so Snow Whites are out of the way, and now we are moving on to the Sun Wukongs to finish off the S's. Let's see where they go. We are going to go to it rather quickly. Storm Sun Wukong was the original one, released about 1 year after Storm Elmina and Earth Musha. She seemed to combine both of them into a strong mix, but couldn't quite live up to that. Still very, very decent though at that time with her charged hold ground. Yeah, but right now she goes to the F tier. As a stealth unit that sometimes can still have some use. And then we have Dark Sun Wukong. Of course, she had a second revival once Unicorn was released. Dark Sun Wukong, of course, the first clone unit that seemed truly broken in the sense that the clones could actually go quite crazy, especially with the damage scaling based on the number of clones. The limitation wasn't that crazy. She could also have the high speed and as such already clone straight away. The only thing that prevented her from cloning all the time is having the counter stance status effect, and that was triggered easily, of course. Back then, not everything ignored the counter stance. She was never at the very, very top of the rankings, but she was definitely top 10 for a long time, and also still one of the very best PvE unit that you can deploy. And at this point, she makes it to the C tier. Then you have Earth Sun Wukong, actually also interesting the way she can clone a lot, even a lot more than Dark Sun Wukong. Also comes, unlike her predecessor, with an execute skill. Comes with the Cursed Sleep and Stealth style skill set. And yeah, unfortunately now with the executes going wild, it's a problem. New Anya was released and kind of put a stop to her as well. Even though, other than that, she could be a nice counter to some things. The finishing blow, unfortunately, doesn't ignore armor, so her execute skill is a bit hampered by that. But still, in certain ways, she could sometimes clone a lot and then be a struggle, especially if you're a whale. I think there's still something to be said for her. And she has some nice entry effect as well, which is nice in combination with the cloning. Dark Sun Wukong, of course, had the super poison entry. Earth Sun Wukong distributes stun wards and yeah, gives some potentially cursed sleep on enemies she kills or on enemies that enter after a kill and stuff like that. So all that good stuff. She goes to the B tier. Whew. Okay, now we are done with S and we are really, really close to being done. The funny thing is we still have 2 out of 3 new units to go here, because they are so late in the alphabet. But yeah, let's see. Storm Snow White could have been so much better, I agree, Umbra, and yeah, Dark Snow White soloed the tower for that for a long time, so that was very good. And indeed, now we are on the last stretch, and the last stretch begins with the last ever male unit released, even though, yeah, to be fair, he doesn't look extremely male in that picture. I mean, it is a boy after all. So that is Theo, and Theo had some interesting stuff with the healing pulse, but even at the release, felt quite weak, not really making a dent in the meta, and back then I felt like, okay, Zigzag, yeah, I mean, now they can use this as an example of, oh, nobody is pulling for male units, but the true reason why nobody was pulling for Theo was because he was pretty bad. And so he goes to the cheat here now, yay! And then we have none other than Tiamat. And Tiamat is probably the unit that was most screwed by a subsequent release in the entire history of Evertale. She came out with the Genesis skill, with, you know, all these guards that help her to stay alive, hopefully unlock her survivor skill, give her spirit for her overdrive part of the skill set. And then they immediately released Storm Lancelot afterwards, which fully countered her elementally and skill set wise. So yeah, she was truly screwed by Zigzag, but what can you do? That's why she goes to the cheat here. She was basically the last unit that was released before the huge power creeping started in Evertale at the end of 2022. Then we have Tristan. Tristan's still an interesting one. Of course, one of the main... Oh, 4Jamie4, thanks for becoming... Oh my god, oh no, it's Rositiara who gifted 5 memberships. Awesome. So 5 people will become true supporters for 1 month. Congratulations, and I hope you enjoy the exclusive content in the background. I also have some exclusive behind the scenes and videos maybe in store for you. And of course, a lot of thanks to Rositiara for yet another big support here for the channel. And I really hope you have a good night's sleep and some good rest. Really appreciate your support for the channel. And now we move on to Tristan. Oh, actually, we were already at Tristan. And Tristan, of course, still a good sleep unit, but at this point already countered by quite a few, and as such, struggling to hold on. And yeah, it is what it is. Tristan, still interesting to get the turns and stuff like that. Very nice mechanic there to get it after the first enemy takes the turn, after her entering. But yeah, that is still a good unit, but not that good anymore. And as such, she goes to the A tier, right next to Mermaid. So these 2 sleep units can hang out a little bit together. And that means we are already done with T. So now we are in the U units, and actually there's only a single U unit. Let's see who is gonna be, where she's gonna go. Unicorn was SSS tier for a short time. She was really big there, with the stunning entry, or rather stunning enemies that are entering. Also the Rainbow Raid was nice, basically an execute skill that ignores armor. And yeah, also the armor, I guess, that helps for her own teammates. Yeah, some good stuff about Unicorn, and of course that enabled the kind of abuse of Dark Sun Wukong. Basically giving armor on Dark Sun Wukongs was what helped a lot. And yeah, we have some thank you in the chat for Rositiara. Hopefully she sees that tomorrow. People appreciating the gifted memberships there. And yeah, Unicorn was pretty broken and helped Dark Sun Wukong have a second revival. But at this point, she no longer is at the top of the meta. Not even close, unfortunately, even though she sometimes still has her usability. She goes to the C tier, where she hangs out with Dark Sun Wukong, for example. And now we get to Venus. Finally, we get a new unit that is gonna get tiered. After Vesh and Von and Voraxion, another V unit. And this Venus is something special. She has the charm mechanic in her skill set, and she has the permanent 100% healing whenever she gets hit, which is quite crazy. Then again, disabling and frostburn are holding her back a little bit. but her damage output can be pretty crazy, and at the same time she can reduce the damage output of enemies significantly with her charm effect. She also gets the turns a lot, so if she doesn't run or get highly stunned and misses her turns, there's a lot of good things that Venus can do, also supporting your team. And as such, Venus actually, and maybe that surprises some who have been disparaging Venus to some degree. Then again, I think after the Platoon Wars tournament, it became clear that Venus isn't too bad. She actually makes it to the SSS tier. Not SSS tier, but SS tier. But yeah, Venus is going there. Sitting pretty there at the top of the SSS tier. Congratulations, Venus, definitely a strong unit to look out for. A huge event that we saw last time at the beginning of January there with these releases. Valkyrie reset in the SSS tier. Now Venus in the SS tier, and we haven't tiered Zeus yet. So that is a really, really strong combination. Let's see how the new event turns out with Dark Musashi, with Kenjin, with new Earth Musha potentially. So let's see how this event stacks up against this prior event. But yeah, this prior event looks like a very, very strong home run in terms of meta breakers. Well, not meta breakers, but you know, units that are at the top of the meta. Speaking of which, Wesh, of course, has to go to the God tier. This Fox character has some really nice art style, really enjoy the skill animations as well. Probably enjoy the art the most from all characters. I really enjoy the fully awakened art and also the kind of evolution style, the kind of oil painting style vibe of these images. Of course, this was a character that was released long before AI slop became a thing, so we definitely know that has been painted by some very talented artists. Really like that, but unfortunately it's just G tier at this point in the meta, no chance. But in historic PvP and Shadow Leagues, he still holds his own. Then we have one, actually an off-banner unit as well, and this one is actually coming with some summoning entries, so that helps a little bit down the line, as long as you don't run into savage units, which at this point is rather rare, to be honest. But yeah, it is a very old unit, it's an off-banner unit, and it has a high hate, so it can be used as a pseudo-guard a little bit, and that is probably why he still makes it into the F tier, even if barely. Linux is saying, we love the goddess of love. Seems like a lot of people do, although, I mean, her usage is actually pretty low, well, comparatively speaking. It's about 22% right now, and still, the impact in terms of my data seems so big that she deserves that SS tier or that very high ranking. If you compare it, for example, Chronos has 64% and Momotaro has 62%. So despite all that, Venus is right between them. You can see that my system is definitely not just usage-based. Alright, moving on now. Speaking of usage, Voraxion has a great usage actually. Among 2,000 top teams, not a single one is using Voraxion, so Voraxion goes right to the G tier. Also, he explodes. Basically, he does suicide, and the suicide attack is not even that strong compared to somebody like Odin. I guess Odin is the spiritual successor of Voraxion, but just better in every single aspect. Yeah, that is Voraxion for you. Looks a little bit more intimidating in his non-first form, to be fair, but yeah, that actually suits him well, I think, in the G tier. And now we only have 5 more units to go, guys. 5 more units after 3.5 hours. So, easy peasy. Actually, didn't take that long. Yamato is up next. She is a guard. She was released right after New Anya. Obviously, standing in her shadow a little bit, despite having the similar power level. Her skill set isn't as great. She's also not immovable, which makes sense given her skill set, because she goes back and forth potentially, sounding the alarm. She has some very nice stuff in her skill set, but she's also very vulnerable to stun. She has very great healing capabilities, so that is something to appreciate about her. And she also has some nice kind of give turn mechanic or suppressing fire and stuff like that. So still some really great support for most teams. Definitely a lot to like about her. And yeah, as such, let me actually check. I'm just curious. Yamato has 42% usage. And with this 42% usage, guys, she makes it into the S tier. So right next to Don Quixote, which is actually very generous, I think. Don Quixote, I feel, is much better than her. But I mean, both are in this S tier for a reason. Both are definitely very usable still, as are all these S tier units. Personally speaking, I would also not pull for... I would not recommend anyone to pull anything below A tier, or rather even below S tier, if I'm totally honest. Personally speaking, for my free-to-play account, I'm not considering pulling anything below SS tier if I can avoid it. So yeah. And then we got Yuki. Interestingly enough, she was, when I did this huge tier list the last time with 150 SSRs in September 2024, she was the last unit of the alphabet, but now we got 3 units that are after her. So yeah, where does Yuki go? She still goes to the G tier. The only ever Frost unit. Some people got excited for a second when they saw Anastasia and thought, okay, well, now the Frost is getting brought back finally, but it was completely different, so Yuki couldn't even get a little bit of a revival after all that time. Still the only Frost unit. Linux, I knew that you would say that below S tier, but Mermaid. That's why I said below A tier first, but you know, if I'm totally honest, it's A tier isn't something to use anymore. Linux saying Zeus is also SS. Let's see, now we are finally at the final new unit before we mention Zhuge Liang and Zoro. We have Zeus, who has a huge passive stun, which is pretty insane on turns, because even if she is disabled, that is very strong. Also keep in mind that every single disabled unit, I mean, we only saw new Anya and Chronos so far, made it to the SSS tier, something that I also mentioned in her review. She is a bit more focused on stunning actual units or being strong against stuns. The Zeus's Blessing is very nice. She also has some nice mechanic to keep her alive. The Execute skill, not ignoring armor, is a bit of a downer, but then again, the damage output or the damage scaling on her is pretty crazy, and the synergies are absolutely there with other stun units. What the hell? Nate's Tyron 4830 gifted $50? That's the biggest donation of this channel of all time. That's basically all of the donations combined we had so far. My goodness, man, Nate, thank you so much. He's saying, thanks for the marathon unit review. Amazing work and content. Man, I appreciate that a lot after 3.5 hours of non-stop talking. This is really making my day right now. Honestly, much appreciate the support. That is absolutely huge, Nate. Thank you so much for that support. That is absolutely insane. Really great. Keeping the lights on here in the true HQ, even though it's getting dark here and only my PC is running with no lights. But yeah, thanks a lot, Nate. That is much appreciated. Awesome support, and really like to see it. If you if you need any specific info, just text me on Discord, and I'm glad to help you on anything. Honestly, I'm blown away by that level of support. Never seen that before. Much appreciated. Alright, and all that now right in the middle of the Zeus tiering, and we are going to tier it now, guys. Get ready for Zeus. Let's see how far Zeus is gonna rise. Is it gonna be Zeus? Is it 2S Zeus? Or is it gonna be something a little less impressive, like the S tier? Or is it even gonna be the SSS tier? It is SSS tier. She goes to the very top. I didn't quite believe it myself, but she has deserved it. Zeus is definitely one of the strongest units. Her passive stun is crazy. Her disabling mechanic is very, very helpful against a lot of meta units, and so the combination is really great there. She doesn't need to run with other stun units necessarily, but yeah, I think as for starters, this is looking very good right now. New Anya, Viris, Zeus, and Momotaro as a combination. Potentially Venus there as well. Modern Elmina as a reinforcement that we see there as well. But yeah, all in all, the question now becomes, of course, how is Dark Musashi going to handle all these units in the SSS tier? So let's see. But yeah, this means the streak is unbroken. So that means all the disabling units that were released so far, so New Anya, Chronos, and Zeus, all of them are still making it into the SSS tier at least once at their release. So that tells you all that you need to know about disabling so far. Even though I couldn't quite believe it when I saw the release, I was a bit underwhelmed by her, you know, kind of not ignoring armor on her execute skill, and also the kind of reliance on actual stuns. But then again, I guess Zeus has been strong enough to make a significant impact on the meta around the world. So yeah, that is Zeus, and now we can wrap it up very quickly, guys. We have only 2 units left, and which is great because my voice is starting to run out. And also I wanna go celebrate with that donation. Nah, just kidding, but I definitely look forward to having some meal. And Zhuge Liang is next. Linek is already predicting A tier and A tier for both of these units. Zhuge Liang, definitely one of the, in hindsight at least, a little bit underwhelming units. She was a burn unit released, but quickly got out-mettered. And as such, Zhuge Liang actually only makes it to the B tier. So yeah, that is just B tier for Zhuge Liang. Burn is not doing that great anymore. We have a lot of burn units here, like Shenlongs, like Satan in the B tier. Cerberus also already further down the line. And so yeah, that means that is that one. And then the final unit from A to C, or A to Z, how do you even say that? Maybe I should have looked that up beforehand. But yeah, it's Zorro. And Zorro is still interesting for the gift turn. Of course, she's vulnerable to all kinds of stuff. But she still has the double Phoenix, she still has the high speed and the combo to give some other units on her team the turn. So that can be important. And as such, she makes it to the A tier. Congratulations to Zorro, still holding on pretty high up here in the meta, and that is that. So congratulations for her on that. Although one thing I'm confused a little bit about, I feel like I should have more C tier. That is weird. Let me quickly check. Maybe I mistiered somebody. I'm gonna quickly make sure that we are having the right tier list here, no mistakes. Maybe we go through it together, repeat all the names, so all the new guys can know what's what as well, even without knowing what the pictures are. Even though, I mean, I will add the timestamps in the description later on, so people can just jump to the names that they are interested in, but maybe they wanna have the summary, so we will quickly go through that as well. Duang Fuk is saying, how do one have this much energy to talk? Yeah, I don't know where I take it from actually. my voice is already giving out, but yeah, I'm going to the doctor tomorrow anyway, so maybe he can revive my voice strings. True passion is the right answer indeed, Linux. And certain sleep water unit is a bit lower than she should be. Who could it be? You mean Tristan? No, but let's quickly go through all the units, guys. At the top, we have New Anya, Valkyrie Reset, Zeus, and Momotaro. These are the current SSS tier units. And we mentioned Dark Musashi in the Musashi section before. Doesn't have an official tier yet based on data because she was just released. But yeah, I gave you my prediction in that part of the video. Then we have Venus in SS tier, right ahead of Chronos, Modern Elmina, Anastasia, Masamune, Siegfried, Perry, Dark Ludmilla, and Light Bahamut. And something to point out here as well is that the top 11 currently are exclusively made up of 3 elements: water, storm, and light. Dark, earth, and fire completely shadowed here. I mean, Dark Ludmilla is still holding on in the SS tier, but that is also a bit of a legacy effect in my personal opinion. So yeah, they really need the buff. And that is why I already said, okay, dark unit will come ahead of this event that should hopefully bring back the dark element into the meta. Looks like Dark Musashi might have what it takes to do that. Then, let's see. Is everything else also still correct? We have Cera, then we have Dark Hibiki, Don Quixote, Yamato, Revenant King Arthur, Green Elizabeth, Light Anya, Ryoma, Pinocchio, and Clare. Yes, those are our S tiers. Then we have Dark Clarice in the A tier, ahead of Storm Kirin, Earth Gavine, Light Hokusai, Lucifer, Kojiro, Zoro, Dark Lancelot, Cthulhu, Mermaid, and Tristan. Yeah, okay, that's correct. Interesting. That's fine so far. And then we have something is weird here. Let's see. B tier. Storm King Arthur leading the front, ahead of Earth Dark Rolosha, Avatar Ludmilla, Satan, Yukata Ludmilla, Earth Sun Wukong, Murasaki, Cerberus, Nike, Musashi, the Water Musashi that is, Fire Shenlong, and Fire Zhuge. Very similar names, very similar rank. And then we get to the C tier, and that is Dark Sun Wukong, Water Anya, wait, where is Water Cinderella? Oh, there she is! Okay, Water Cinderella was mistiered, guys. Not sure how that happened. But, she's actually in the C tier, so congratulations to Water Cinderella with her endless nightmares. She still makes it to the C tier. And I think Dark Cinderella actually is a little bit further down the line here. But also in the C tier. So 2 Cinderellas in the C tier, that makes sense given their name. And yeah, so that was the mistake here. That's why this tier list looked a little bit uneven, which I don't like to see. Yeah, so this is how it should be. Alright, so those are all the ones. I mean, let's finish the C tier here. We have Da Vinci, Unicorn, Earth, Dark Cleopatra, Storm Snow White, we have Dark Kaguya, Hichikata, Lubu, Dark Cinderella, and Mordred. So those are all the units that you still need to know the name of. Everything below is pretty much a skip at this point, an immediate skip unless you go for the fellowships. And of course we have a huge graveyard tier with all these units that are basically no longer relevant in the meta. The F tier is slightly above that, but also not that far, as I explained during the video. And yeah, that's all of it. And so this is the newest tier list, guys, the very first one from 2026. And glad that you all joined in here for the live stream. Oh yeah, now we know which certain water unit Lennox meant. True. Can't believe Dark Ludmilla is still at S while Don Quixote is lower. Yeah, at SS actually, but yeah, you're right. I mean, in my personal, you know, subjective opinion, Don Quixote definitely is better than Dark Ludmilla. Somehow, Dark Ludmilla is still holding on due to some legacy effects, even though I'm correcting for that. But, you know, ultimately, that is what the algorithm tells me. And that is the final tier list, or the very first tier list of 2026 with all 201 SSR characters ranked that were released until the, middle of January. We don't have Dark Musashi yet, so that will be in the next edition, but I'm glad that you are all, or you have all tuned in for this huge long live stream, especially those who stuck around for a very long time, as it was a very, very long time, which I understand. And I also notice now on my voice, because I feel like I have to talk, well, I talked a little more than during the tournament live streams, to be honest. During the tournament live streams, it's like, okay, sometimes you can just watch and see and, oh, this is happening. But here it's more like, okay, I gotta get with the program. So a lot of thanks to the supporters, especially, of course, Rossi Tiara, who gifted 5 memberships to my channel. So I hope those 5 new members will enjoy the background information and some exclusive videos. And of course to Nate's Tyrone, who gave the biggest donation in the history of this channel, $50. Insane support from Nate, and I'm very, very appreciative of that. And of course also for the other supportive comments, thanks a lot to NA3F02 in the chats. Thank you, Drew, for your hard work. Please always stay healthy. I will try my best to do that. That's why I'm going to the checkup tomorrow. And Duang Fuk is saying, thanks for the tier list. Won't be afraid of being scammed by online tier list anymore. Yeah, that's the big the big thing I'm trying to do here. Getting rid of all these scam online tier list, or don't ask chatbots to give you any any good units, then some bad stuff will come out. Evertale is just too niche for that. If that was working, I could already automate my channel, but I still have to give my expertise and collect all these data by myself. Linux saying peak tier list could be improved here and there, but it is so peak. Much appreciate that. I feel like I know what you are referring to in the improvements, but yeah, for that we might have to wait until there is a second Mermaid release. Satsnina is saying, I still remember how Druke underestimated Zeus. Well, I mean, underestimated. I thought, basically I said I don't think she quite has what it takes to go to SSS tier, but yeah, I was proven wrong in that. And actually she's the first unit in a very long time that goes to SSS tier that I didn't... Well, actually, no, I pulled for her, so yeah, never mind. I did get 1 copy of Zeus, but then didn't pull for the full awakening because Valkyrie Reset already came out. And I had to make the review for that. But yeah, okay, so so my streak is not broken in that sense, at least. So I only picked the SSS tier units still for my account. So at least there's that, I guess. But yeah, in any case, thanks a lot for all your support. Shout out again to Nate for that huge support, and Rositiara, but everyone else, of course, who was watching along. That is why I do this. I know that Evertale isn't on the rise right now, so that is why I'm even more appreciative of you tuning in. If you want to do me a favor, you can also hit that like button to become a true carrot, and also subscribe, of course, for more Evertale content coming soon. Of course, we will have to review all these new units that are coming out and see where they land ultimately. And yeah, and also yeah, I guess once I have all these timestamps in the description, this is gonna be a good encyclopedia. So if anybody asks you, okay, what is going on with this unit, or I have these units, are they good, or something like that, you can just send them this video and they can click to the name of the respective unit, and we'll see where it lands in this biggest tier list of all time for Evertale. And it just took 3 hours and 45 minutes to compile, so that is great. Things I gotta make Evertale rise here. I don't get my hopes up, but I do hope that they still do something with this game. Then again, I mean, it's still holding on quite well, I guess. A lot of other gacha games don't last for such a long time. It's nearly 7 years now, and so I guess that is something to be considered. Alright, cool. That is all that. Thanks to the 23 viewers who are in the chat right now, or in the viewing this live right now. I hope you have a nice rest of your Sunday, even if the Sunday might already be done for some of you. Hopefully you still have a good night then in that case, and to the Europeans a good evening, and to the Americans a good day from my side. And as always, thanks for watching.